This is Roger.
Number one for local news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Tuesday, January 26th. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa, -7. In Smiths Falls, -6 degrees. And here's what's making news in Ottawa and the Valley. Last thing we need as the country struggles to control wave 2 of COVID-19 is a surge in cases of the highly contagious variants brought into the country by March break travelers. That's the thinking here as the Prime Minister's cabinet is working on stricter travel rules. Here's City News reporter Kevin Meisner.
Deputy Prime Minister Chrystia Freeland says leaving Canada on a vacation is not a good idea.
I cannot urge Canadians too strongly. Please, now is not the time to travel.
She's hinting that tough new restrictions could be on the way, including forcing returning travelers who were on non-essential trips to quarantine for 2 weeks at their own expense in a government-designated hotel. Premier Doug Ford says right now 30,000 international travelers are arriving at Pearson International Airport each week, and testing shows that 2.5% of them have COVID-19.
So if I'm doing my math correctly, 2.5% of 30,750 people slipping in through the border that have COVID. I just don't get it.
Now, Ford says that's even with the new federal rule requiring all incoming travelers to have proof of a negative test before arriving and then going into quarantine for 14 days. I'm Kevin Meisner.
City News Time, 9:01. Scientists and researchers have been measuring levels of COVID-19 in our city wastewater since the beginning of this pandemic. It's one aspect of data Ottawa Public Health measures. Dr. Tyson Grabber is with research associate at CHEO and says the levels have started to plateau.
It was plateauing, beginning around January 1st, really, just after Christmas. It was going up. Maybe a week before Christmas, we saw increases, and last 3 or 4 days of data is showing hopefully a steady, but again, a slow decrease.
At this point, Dr. Graber says the wastewater tests are not yet able to detect the new COVID-19 variants. Full interview with the doctor at 9:15 on The Rob Snow Show. City News Time, 9:02, and now your forecast with meteorologist Jill Taylor.
Periods of light snow for us today, and especially for tonight. The high -5, -12 for the low. Could have another 2 to 4 centimeters through the evening, and tomorrow chance of flurries -4. For today, the high -5.
And right now in Ottawa, -7. In Smiths Falls, it's -6 degrees. According to Orkin Canada, there were less of the dreaded hitchhikers in Ottawa this year. The hitchhikers in this case, bedbugs. In 2019, the city ranked 5th on a list of the most populous cities in Canada for bedbugs. This past year, though, Ottawa improved to 10th. The pest control company says it's primarily due to more people working outside the office and not taking transit or airlines, where transmission rates for bed bugs is much higher. This is the second straight year Toronto had the highest number of bed bug treatments anywhere in Canada. Well, this year's Winterlude has gone virtual, and we will have our first look at what that means. And all in-person activities have been canceled, so nothing like the Snowflake Kingdom this year, but things like the ice carvings will remain. Organizers are challenging Canadian ice sculptors to compete simultaneously right across the country. Virtual shows and the National Museum tours also available, and the event will kick off on February 5th with a national show. That show is a joint production with Canadian Heritage and Rogers TV Ottawa. I'm Andrew Boyle. For News Anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Inform your opinions.
It's the Rob Snow Show on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
So we've reached that point of the winter when -6 or 7 actually doesn't feel too bad. Funny how that works. That's actually normal weather for this time of year. Normal daytime high, 26th of January, -6, usually dropping to -15 overnight. And lo and behold, we've made it to 5 p.m., ladies and gentlemen. Sunset today, 5 o'clock on the dot. And I think I look at this Groundhog Day coming up shortly. I would say we have about 50 days of this kind of weather left. I was looking at the super duper long-term weather forecast from AccuWeather this morning. I do this every now and then. It gives me hope. And I think I'm going to make this prediction by the middle of March. By about March 14th, that's going to be it for Ottawa for daytime highs that are below freezing. And in fact, by the last week of March, there could be daytime highs in the double digits, according to this super duper long-term weather forecast, like plus 10, plus 11, plus 12. Oh, if I had a magic DeLorean, I would go there right now. The only question being, what would I be allowed to do once I got there? Probably not too much. Good morning, Rob Snow Show here, Rogers TV and City News. And thanks for spending some of your morning with us. David's lined up a very good program ahead for us. There's a lot happening this morning. On the local front, there's going to be an update this morning from top city officials on vaccinations, vaccine rollout. I'll be very curious to hear what they have to say. The mayor, Dr. Vera Etches, Anthony DeMonte, all the heavy hitters. What are they going to say? What does the vaccine stoppage mean for the city of Ottawa? Why are we even calling it a shortage anymore? It's not a shortage. It's not a vaccine shortage. It's a stoppage. Okay? There are no doses coming from Pfizer. That's a stoppage, not a shortage. We're listening into that here at City News. Supposed to start at 9 o'clock. Is that started, David? Is that underway yet? Not underway yet. Okay. What does the... That's the YouTube music. Okay. What does the Pfizer vaccine stoppage mean for this city, the capital city of 1 million people? In addition, as you heard in our newscast, what's happening with the wastewater, right? What does the wastewater say about the current state of COVID-19 in our city? I had an opportunity this morning to speak about that issue with Dr. Tyson Graber. He is the point man on all of this, working at CHEO. And he had good news to share this morning. Things are looking up. Much improved. Now, it's not nearly as positive as things were, say, back in the summer of last year when case counts in Ottawa, you remember, like single digits back in the summer, right? But Dr. Graber told me this morning the situation in Ottawa seems to not only have plateaued, but he also said this morning it's starting to slowly decline. So that's very encouraging. That interview, the full interview, coming up here shortly on City News. And a little later in the program, final hour of the program, kind of sticking with the science theme this morning, Timothy Caulfield is a Canada Research Chair, Health Law and Policy Professor at the University of Alberta. You may know him from the Netflix documentary series, The User's Guide to Cheating Death. He also wrote, Is Gwyneth Paltrow Wrong About Everything? When celebrity culture and science clash. And he is now part of this, what do you call it? Is it a movement? Is it a group? What is it? It's a hashtag called Science Up First. Hashtag Science Up First. And they hope to stop the spread of misinformation around COVID-19. Online, right? He calls it an infodemic. It's an infodemic. Because, there's so much crazy stuff out there when it comes to COVID. Fake news, fake science, junk science, and it spreads faster than the virus around social media. All it takes is a hashtag. Think about it. Conspiracy theories, Bill Gates, microchips, was it leaked from a lab? You remember that was the hot one? It was a bioweapon accidentally let loose. All that's missing is the looming zombie apocalypse. And sadly, this pandemic, it's just, isn't it? It's tailor-made for the social media age and the anti-vaxxer movement, which, even before COVID-19 had already been doing tremendous harm. So we're going to get into that issue in a big way this morning. Professor Ian Lee, Sprott School of Business at Carleton University. Joe Biden, how do you like me now? How do you like me now, Canada? Right, it hasn't even been a week. And look at what Joe Biden has done to Canada. Already lots of questions about the future of Canada's economy and how it's going to handle or even survive the Joe Biden presidency. He's already canceled a pipeline, Keystone XL, and now comes Buy America. You know, again, totally predictable and foreseeable. Something he said he was going to do, and yet the Trudeau government seems to be caught scrambling again while the big business lobby groups are warning of difficult times ahead. You think of all the Canadian companies that rely on doing business with the government of the United States. As a client, as a customer, there are entire industries. Single biggest client, single biggest customer is the government of the United States. So imagine a scenario that sees Canadian companies shut out entirely from that business. Shut out entirely from all of that work in the billions, tens, hundreds of billions a year. I get it. Okay, Joe Biden is the centrist, the moderate. He comes across as, Mr. Nice Guy, like old, gray, dull, harmless. But I'm telling you, some of his policies are not going to be harmless for Canada and Canadian industry. But what are Canada's options, right? Does Canada even have the economic heft to say retaliate? Do we really want to fight a trade war with the world's largest economy? Do we have a government here in Ottawa that even seems interested in retaliation? You know, it didn't hesitate to impose retaliatory tariffs on American imports when Trump was in power. And Trump was beaten up pretty bad on our steel and aluminum industries. And yet, you know, it's been barely a week into the Biden administration, and they can't wave the white flag fast enough. People in the prime minister's office are as quiet as a family of church mice. It is quite something to behold. Other big stories in the mix as well. I hope you'll comment on them when we do our Talkback Hour coming up between 10 and 11 o'clock this morning. Call an hour. Love listening to your opinions. My favorite part of the day. 750-1310. 750-1310. 613-750-1310. Email therobsnowshow@ottawa.citynews.ca. You know, one is what is going on at airports in Canada? Pearson Airport, I have the list again. All the flights arriving into Pearson today. Long list. What is the Trudeau government going to do? Is it ever going to do anything about the situation? At an airport like Pearson, for example, there's a news story this morning. 143 flights have landed in Canada, international flights. 143 have landed in Canada in just the last 2 weeks, with at least one person confirmed to now have COVID-19 in just the last 2 weeks. 143 flights in just the last 2 weeks. I mean, it's been more than 3 weeks since Mr. Trudeau said, you're not allowed on a plane coming to Canada unless you've tested negative for COVID-19 within the last 72 hours. Now, that's something that should have happened 10 months ago, not 3 weeks ago. But it is in place. Hey, the way they've set it up, does it sound like it's working? 143 flights, like 10 flights a day landing at Canadian airports. We're basically importing COVID-19 by air in long metal tubes. And you think about this, all of this is happening when you have fear about these more contagious variants. We have the UK variant, the South African variant, the Brazilian variant, maybe not more deadly, but more contagious. 143 flights land in Canada in 14 days. Something's not computing here. How is this allowed to continue? Why is it happening at all? Ontario is under a state of emergency. We have a stay-at-home order in effect. Quebec, 8.5 million people living under the first government-imposed curfew in 50 years, and yet every couple of hours a flight lands at Pearson International and someone on board has COVID. It's the height of idiocy. Don't you think the government might want to do something about that? And vaccines, the vaccine rollout shortage stoppage, I am worried that this could get a whole lot worse. Pay attention to what leaders are saying in Brussels, okay? Capital of the EU. Our Pfizer vaccine comes from Belgium. And now EU countries, they don't sound like they're too enthusiastic about sharing whatever supply is eventually available. You know why? Because they have their own problems. Trudeau at Rideau Cottage. Maybe he'll talk about some of this very important stuff. 11:15 this morning, we have the NDP leader, Jagmeet Singh, ahead of that. He's our guest at 11 on the Rob Snow Show on City News.
The location is unique. There's, as you can see, it's open. And we have large windows. You can sit down and you can look outside. And this scene is not many scenes like that in Ottawa anymore with the high buildings. And we have the train station to the west of us. We have the train yards to the south. We have Saint Laurent Shopping Center, not far from here. And OC Transpo, not far from here. And the train, the light train, again, is not far from here. You can find breakfast. The breakfast, it was 7 or 8 years ago, it was one of the best five restaurants in Ottawa, one of the best. One of the 5 best breakfasts in Ottawa. 7 or 8 years ago, it was in the Citizen. And our club sandwich is voted by customers the best in town. And the pea soup, too, is voted the best in town. We sell, we make pizza, we make Italian food, Lebanese dishes. Many customers describe it as it has the prices of the 60s. Very reasonable prices. And the food, many say the best in town. Not me. Many customers say that. It was a shock. It was a shock. And we went from doing well to barely doing very little. We relied heavily on the takeout, and the takeout was not that much. There was some. I hear from many customers that they are willing to come and sit inside. They're not afraid of the spread, as long as we wash our hands, sanitize everything, and wear your mask and keep the distancing. Most or all our customers are okay with that. So they are against the lockdown, They are supporting us a lot. And if it wasn't for the community loyalty, we wouldn't be here today. So I have to thank them for their support so far. It's been great.
Fair.
Fun.
The Rob Snow Show returns
On Rogers TV and City News, 101.1 FM.
and 1310 AM.
What does the wastewater say in Ottawa? Because nothing says fun like looking at wastewater. Ottawa's COVID-19 leading indicator. Dr. Tyson Graber is back with us on City News. He's a research associate at CHEO. Good morning, Doctor.
Hi, good morning.
What would the recent readings indicate?
Well, we've been really plateauing for the last few weeks, and the good news is that in the last few days we just had data coming online, and it'll be online on the website later today. That it's kind of going down now, and so I think we're in a good place really right now.
Okay, and when did this plateauing occur? If you were to chart it out, what would it show?
Yeah, so we have a chart that's up online on 613covid.ca, and it was plateauing, beginning around January 1st, really, just after Christmas. It was going up. Maybe a week before Christmas, we saw increases. And as you know, that was around the time of the lockdown. And that correlated with the cases in the city. And, cases were quite high throughout most of the month of January. And the wastewater indicated that we weren't really going up like a rocket. It was a steady burn, a steady increase, and then it kind of plateaued for the last couple of weeks. And indeed, the last 3 or 4 days of data is showing hopefully a steady, but again, a slow decrease. And that correlates again with the cases decreasing. So hopefully it's a trend that continues, but we're still at a heightened level of disease in the city.
How possible is it to, say, correlate your analysis of the wastewater to the public health measures, such as you mentioned the lockdown, which came into effect on Boxing Day, or even the stay-at-home order, which was brought in, I guess, about 12 days ago. January 14th, the stay-at-home order came into effect. Is it possible to see a correlation there, Doctor?
I think we've seen that before in the early fall when we had a resurgence. We saw a big spike, big increase in wastewater only over a few days, and then that slowly came down as people stayed home. And I think we're seeing this again, and that again correlates with the cases, the individual clinical cases. So the lockdown is working for sure. And that's consistent with wastewater data from other parts of the world where there's been lockdowns. The thing with wastewater is that we can certainly detect increases in disease very quickly. But on the other side, as we come down from that peak during lockdown, the wastewater is quite slow, and that's because people fecally shed fragments of this virus for long periods of time, even after they may be not symptomatic anymore. And it is a slow and steady decrease for wastewater.
Okay, that's very interesting. How long now have researchers been here in Ottawa been collecting these samples, the wastewater samples?
So we actually started back in towards the beginning of April of last year.
Okay.
And it's really turned into a daily endeavor. Back, I guess we started the daily readings in, I believe around August. So it's between August and now, we've really had, I'd say actually July, because we were collecting every 2 days in July. So between July and now, we've had a really excellent data set to work on.
Okay,
yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So, say, if you were to look back over the last 6 months, if I had a graph in front of me, where would we be? Kind of, would we be, say, in the like an upper quadrant, a lower quadrant? What would you say?
We're kind of mid-range right now compared to that entire data set. So we're not where we were back in July, for sure, when cases were extremely low in the city. Right now, we're more where we were, I'd say, at the beginning of October, when there was again heightened transmission in the city, but it's looking good. If this trend continues, then I think we're looking good going into next week. Looking good.
Okay. So far very positive. I guess one has to wonder then what would have to happen, what conditions would have to be in place, such as they were in July, in order to get those numbers really low. What do you think?
Well, this is up to Ottawa Public Health to decide this, and they base this based on the part of the wastewater data is part of their equation, and the clinical data, of course, and the hospitalization data, and all three are looking quite good now. And the next kind of fly in the ointment is the UK variant or other variants of concern, as they call them.
Okay, so when it comes to the variants, then, when you analyze the wastewater, do you know? Can you tell what variants might be in there, or?
So right now, the daily testing that we do does not detect those variants. It can't distinguish those variants. It's kind of an all-encompassing test. We're looking at the general population of variants, and there are a lot of variants out there in the population. But we are developing a test specifically for the UK variant, and hopefully in the near future for these other variants that are coming up. And hopefully we'll have some sort of answer in regard to, whether the UK variant is significantly penetrated the Ottawa population in the next week or so.
Right. Because
so that'll be hopefully an additional data point to add to this equation.
So it's not that researchers can't; it's that they can't yet.
That's right. Yeah, we're always a little behind the curve with this virus, and we're trying to keep it as close to the front of the line as possible with this virus. But it's quite difficult to keep up. Science doesn't usually work this fast.
Right, but I guess it would be helpful once a test is developed, because in speaking with others in the scientific community, what they would like to know is, could that, for example, that UK strain become the dominant strain of the virus, for example, which is, I'm sure, something you would be interested in knowing as well, given its, I'm not sure what the term would be, how contagious it is.
That's right. Yes, contagion or transmissibility, yes.
Yeah.
Yep, so that's certainly a very urgent question right now. And as we saw in the UK, the most prevalent virus there has now become this variant. And this has actually happened before, earlier last year with the existing virus here in North America, and back around the world. There was a mutation that became more prevalent. Luckily, that mutation had no real effect on transmissibility, but these ones coming up, there's one in the UK, there's one from South Africa, and there's another one coming up from Brazil that are more possibly more transmissible.
Right. I'm sorry, Doctor. In speaking with Dr. Etches, she has called your analysis a leading indicator, but I do wonder, what is the lag between what you would see in your analysis and what would actually be happening clinically within the community? Is it days? Is it weeks? Is it?
Unfortunately, it's not a week, so it's not a long time. It's roughly in the Ottawa context, and we can quantitate this. And then our group has published this now, based on the research we saw in July, and also more recently, we see a bit of a 2-day heads up, essentially. So it's not that long. This is really a function of how good the testing regimen is in the city in terms of clinical testing. And so other countries, their experience is different, because their clinical testing regimen is perhaps better or worse than ours, and so they will see actually different lag times in their wastewater data. So the wastewater data becomes really powerful when kind of the testing system falls apart. and we saw this a little bit during the resurgences in our city, where testing does become an issue, where there's too many people getting tests, and there's a long lag time in reporting the results of those tests. And so that's where this wastewater data adds that extra kind of metric or measure that can be used in addition to these other more classical methods to really get to the ground truth of what's happening with this disease in the city.
Okay. Thank you very much again, Doctor. It's always great to have your perspective on these things.
Okay, thank you very much. Have a good day.
News in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Tuesday, January 26th. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa, -7. In Smiths Falls, -6 degrees. And here's what's making news this hour. Wastewater data is showing some positive signs in the fight against COVID-19 in Ottawa. Numbers have been in a steady decline since the start of the year, and researchers say their next goal is to be able to detect the COVID-19 variants in wastewater. Right now, they can't do that. The City of Ottawa announcing its vaccine rollout plan this hour, just getting underway really, but Mayor Jim Watson says we do have to manage our expectations since there is a delay getting the next doses of Pfizer for the entire country. That is the Pfizer vaccine. Next step for the city right now is to get second doses to those who have had their initial shot. The family of Abdi Rahman Abdi, which reached a settlement with Ottawa Police ending a civil lawsuit over his death, says it is encouraged with a commitment from the service to address mental health calls, like the one that did involve Abdi, who died following a takedown and arrest in 2016. The Police Services Board is going to meet with local mental health stakeholders and come up with a strategy to deal with an ever-increasing number of mental health-related calls its officers attend every year. City News Time, 9:32. I'm Andrew Boyle. For News Anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
He's a pillar of community opinion.
The Rob Snow Show returns
On Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM
And 1310 AM.
Professor Ian Lee is here from Carleton University. Good morning, Professor. Welcome back.
Good morning, Rob.
What do you think about Joe Biden's Buy America plan?
I've been predicting this for months, without exaggeration. I've been saying over and over that those Canadians and those pundits and those analysts who were saying, cheering the defeat of Trump, which I was too, by the way, and saying, oh, a brand new day for Canada. Joe Biden's on our side. He's going to smile sweetly, and he's going to be the anti-Trump, and I think that this is specious nonsense. I've been saying so. Yes, Biden is a decent, honorable person. Yes, Biden is not a racist or a homophobe or someone who's a bigot like Trump was. But that's the difference between Trump and Biden. On policy, there is very little difference. In fact, I would argue, and in fact, I have argued, that when it comes to protectionism, protecting American industry and American workers, that the Democratic Party is far more protectionist than the Republicans, and that Biden, who has close relationships with the Democratic members of Congress and the leadership, because he came out of the Congress himself, is going to hew the party line. And that I said I expect to see increased protectionism under Biden, not reduced protectionism under Biden. So this was absolutely predictable. And in fact, he was campaigning on this in the election. Biden's a smart guy, very smart guy. He learned and saw how Trump in 2016 appealed to the disgruntled, the disenfranchised, the people who felt they'd been left behind by trade agreements. And he fingered China, Mexico, Germany, and Canada as cheaters. He says, look at that. We allow them to come into our markets, but they do not allow us, the Americans, to go into their markets because they keep industries protected. And this has been known for going back to the Clinton years. It was documented every year in the United States Trade Representative Annual Report to Congress. So anybody who thinks that Trump invented this, it sprung to his forehead just straight out of outer space, it's nonsense. This was known for 20, 25 years. It's just that no previous American president would act on it. Trump brought that game to an end. What game? The game that we can protect our industries called dairy, telecom, banking, airlines, broadcasting, and oh, by the way, America, we want you to open up every last aspect of every corner of your economy, and we'll continue to protect ours. Thank you very much. That game died with Trump's election. It did not die with Trump's defeat in November 2020. In fact, that policy, that precedent, is going to be walked on and continued by President Biden. So we are facing very tough times again.
Continued,
and
maybe even
be aware of this.
Sorry, Professor, maybe even intensified by the...
Intensified, that's right. And those who think he's going to smile sweetly, which he will, he bragged, I called Justin Trudeau in Canada first. You know, oh, that's nice. That's really nice.
Yeah.
But it's not going to change the policies.
What did he say? Wouldn't you like to know?
Well, I would. I'm sure it was all sweetness and light. I don't think he made any private threats. In fact, what Biden did, if anybody reads what he said yesterday, it's really, really clever. I mean it. He said, I'm going to leave it up to each of my secretaries in every department in every area of the government and thus the economy to set out the operational rules. Now, some pardon me, naive Canadian pundit said, oh, look, isn't that great? Because now we have all these opportunities to lobby. Do you really think that any secretary, let's use agriculture, who is the new Biden Secretary of Agriculture? Why, that would be Tom Vilsack. And he's, for the last 4 years, the president of the American Dairy Exporters Association that was trashing Canada left, right, and center, up and down.
So he must have a real soft spot for Canada.
Oh, I'm sure he's just going to welcome us with open arms and say, sure, come on in. I'm laughing because it's so preposterous what people are saying. And you can bet, and even if you say, okay, some of the cabinet ministers, secretaries, as they're called down there, are going to be, to use Margaret Thatcher's famous word, wets, meaning they're going to soft and buckle. Well, there's these people in the U.S. Congress called, Nancy Pelosi, and that Democratic Congress in the House, they make Trump look like a pussycat. They are way more protectionist. So if any of the cabinet secretaries go wobbly on Canada, you can bet that the Democratic Congress are going to kick them in the backside hard and repeatedly and remind them that Canadians don't vote for Americans.
Right. So agriculture, vulnerable again, right? What other industries do you think in Canada are vulnerable to this Buy American stuff? In the US?
They're going
like aerospace defense would come to mind, for example, aluminum, steel again. These.
Well, actually, I want to be careful.
Okay.
I think where we're most vulnerable is on government procurement because we made, I believe, this is my analysis.
Right,
maybe
government
my judgment's
procurement.
wrong.
Sure.
We made an enormous mistake in NAFTA 2. Let's just call it the new NAFTA.
Yeah.
Because we agreed to removing government procurement from the new NAFTA.
Oh, okay.
And the Canadian government spun it as, well, we did it, we went along. I think that...
You mean bidding on American contracts, you mean American government contracts.
Right, just government contracts, federal, municipal, and state governments.
Right.
I think my hypothesis, my theory, is that in the back rooms, the Canadian government was cheering and celebrating because they had sugar plums dancing in their eyes about how they were going to go back to Canada and brag about how we protected Canadian government procurement from those nasty American competitors.
Right.
And let's not blame it all on Trudeau. You can bet every last one of the premiers were behind that, saying we don't want Americans coming in and bidding on LRT in Toronto for the government of Ontario. I mean, the provincial governments in Canada are notorious protectionists. And they went along with this with I'm sure, great enthusiasm. And they thought, hey, we're going to keep the Americans out of Canada. They won't have to bid. They won't be allowed to bid on our government business. And people can say, what's wrong with that? Well, the American market is about 10 times bigger than Canada. So it hurts us to be shut out of the American market far more than it hurts the Americans to be shut out of the Canadian market. This is called being hoisted on your own petard. And we got hoisted mightily on our very own petard. We did it to ourselves.
Sounds painful.
Very painful.
Okay, so what then are possible remedies for Canada then? I mean, do you retaliate? Do they retaliate? No, but as I pointed out, the Canadian government didn't hesitate to retaliate on select imported goods from the United States when Trump was picking on the steel and aluminum industries. Right?
Rob, you're right, but everyone makes this implicit, unstated assumption that we are the same size as the States. Hey, we're a big country. Look, we're 8,900 kilometers across. And they fail to acknowledge or understand that we are puny compared. I know Canadians don't like to say that. We're puny compared to the states. We are smaller than the state of California. California has more people and more GDP than Canada, all of Canada. So the idea that we've got the same muscle and the same leverage and the same clout against the United States, the largest economy on the planet Earth, is just simply preposterous nonsense. It's not evidence-based. To your question, what can we do? I do believe there's something we can do, and Doug Saunders in the Globe and Mail beat me to it. He wrote an op-ed 2 days ago, and it quite shocked me it was Doug Saunders, because he's a sort of a slightly left-of-center liberal who, and liberals have always been very strong on protecting dairy and protecting telecom and protecting airlines and banking. So
well, it's not just liberals when it comes to supply management. They all
they all do. That's true. But anyway, he argued that we have to go for broke, basically, and double down and basically seek complete open borders, not political borders, but open borders in the sense complete movement of all goods, all services, everything is open, no protected industries. And I think that Mr. Trudeau, if he has the strategic vision, I'm not sure he does. If he has the backbone, I'm not sure if he does.
No way.
We'll go to Biden.
None of them do. None of them do.
Well, but he's the president.
You won't find a political leader up there.
Okay,
Mad Max used to be. Maybe Mad Max used to be.
Sure.
But
Rob, I have to deal with who's in power, and he's the prime minister right now.
I know.
Okay.
Right.
And here's what I'm suggesting they're going to have to do. And I don't think it's going to happen tomorrow morning, by the way. But I do think it's going to happen in the next 2 years. It's going to take about 2 years for the elites and the population to realize that Joe Biden means business. He is going to protect the Americans. It's going to take us 2 years for this to sink in, because we really do believe in smiling.
And once again, it'll be the poor Canadian farmer, and there'll be the sacrificial lamb, and we'll just have to open up that industry a little more, and a little more, and a little more, and a little more, right?
Go to the Americans.
Yeah, let's just stick it to the dairy farmer again, and we'll stick it to the chicken farmer and everything else, right?
All 6,000 of them. Yes. Let's throw the country over the edge for 6,000 dairy farmers. That doesn't make sense, Rob. That just doesn't make sense. Pay them off. My goodness, I'm not saying exploit them. I mean, we're going to risk the future of Canada for 6 or 7 or 8,000 dairy farmers? Are we insane? Have we lost it? There's 38 million of us, and we're saying, throw the other 37,992,000 over the cliff for 8,000 dairy farmers. We can't do that. And it's going to eventually dawn on a leader, and somebody is going to step forward. And I don't mean tomorrow morning, but I also don't mean in 5 or 10 or 20 years. I think in the next 2-3 years, it's going to dawn on the Canadians and the elites that Joe Biden, Smiling Joe, is not there for us. He's there for them, Americans, voters. And it's going to dawn on them and say, we really need access to this.
I'm not surprised to hear this from you. You always like that cheap American milk anyway.
Doug Sanders and the Globe and Mail's making the same argument.
Everybody knows that the first opportunity when COVID is over, you're headed for Messina and the Price Chopper. We all know this, okay?
Yum, yum.
You would sell our farmers down the river.
No, I want to buy them out.
For a cheap Thanksgiving turkey, you would do that. I know you would.
Listen, I want to give them a great big fat buyout like the Australians did when they ended supply management. We're the only country in the world.
So, what about all the other protected industries? For example, media and telecommunications.
Yeah.
Should we have Verizon come into Canada and AT&T come into Canada and all of these other ones?
Let me turn the question around. Do we want to continue as Canadians to pay the highest cell phone fees in the world? Number one. Number two, when people say, those jobs will be lost. No, they won't. Canadians will go and work for the American
What about the banks? What about the banks? Should we have Wells Fargo and Citibank and Bank of America, all of those banks doing business here too?
Do I think that banks will wilt? I think the Canadians have what we call in strategy and economics first mover advantage. They've been there for so long, literally over 150 years, some of them. Yeah. They're so deeply entrenched, the barriers to entry for American banks are so high, they probably won't. Airlines, yes, are vulnerable, and telecom is more involved. Bell won't disappear, but if we allow AT&T and Verizon in, we'll get a more fragmented market, like the market I see in Poland, where I've been teaching since 1991, where they have, I think it's 8 cell phone companies, telecom companies, and they pay ridiculously cheap cell phone rates. And if people say, no way am I willing to pay that price, well then fine, we can just continue to decline and get poorer and poorer.
Okay, all right, a free-for-all.
I saw the graphs from David Dodge, who I enormously respect, and he gave a speech in Toronto in September, a published speech, a Zoom speech, and he had the graphs in there showing the productivity for Canada going forward, and StatsCan data. And productivity, as anybody who's ever studied economics knows, is the only source of increase in your standard of living. And StatsCan and David Dodge are predicting, as far as the eye can see going forward, productivity rates of 0.2%, when this country historically has generated 3 to 4 full percentage points, which allowed us to become more and more affluent. And our productivity is just collapsed. Our current account deficit, in other words, that's exports minus imports, has collapsed. But you know the most interesting one, Rob, I want to bring out for everybody? I wish I could show these graphs on radio. I can't. There's a wonderful graph from StatsCan showing people with money. It's called investors, okay? And investors are Canadian investors. We're not talking the Chinese. The Canadians are increasingly investing more money outside of Canada than inside Canada because they see better opportunities outside of Canada than inside of Canada. The government has already said, we don't want that dirty, rotten oil, even though it's our number one export. And they're clamping down on mining. They're clamping down on all kinds of activities. Where is the growth going to come from? We have a current account deficit that's negative. We're consuming more than we're earning.
Yeah.
And all these fundamental metrics are going south in tangent with an astronomical deficit that's unprecedented. And so anyone who thinks that the future is bright and rosy with those numbers, we need a complete rethink and a reset of the entire economy. But it isn't going to happen yet because most people aren't there yet in that understanding of these numbers.
I wonder what, when you go to Messina, how do you buy your milk anyway?
Visa.
Like, does it come in a jug? How big is the jug?
I think it's in the jug.
By the gallon?
For a year. You know, I'm deprived because the bridge is closed. It's been closed
I'm
for
just
a long
looking.
time.
I wonder what a comparable price would be in the United States. 4 liters of milk in Canada in the bags is $4.49 at Walmart.
Yeah. I can answer you partly.
I'm wondering, is it half price? Is it 20% cheaper?
Half. University of Guelph, and they're very friendly to the dairy industry. They did a study about a year ago.
It's Moo U, for crying out loud. Right? It is. It's the agricultural school. So
it was an agriculture school, and they actually did the comparison and normalized for the differences in sizes and the Canadian exchange rate, etc. And dairy is vastly, and so is cheese, and so is chicken and turkey, vastly cheaper. And I can't remember, it was about 35%.
Well, you know what? That is the price you pay to have a thriving agricultural sector in this country, and food you can count on when you need it. And it's the best darn milk in the world.
Listen, productivity is collapsing.
All right, we got to go. We'll stop here. I want to know, apparently I was told you hijacked the planning committee yesterday, and I want to know what's going on there. We'll be right back. Professor Ian Lee. Don't get us started on milk. Here on the Rob Snow Show, City News.
It was devastating, and it's devastating to all small business, but not knowing where it was going to go. But then the renovation market, as people stayed home, took off like wildfire. And for us, yes, we're very lucky, very fortunate that we were able to turn things around. I think a lot of it had to do with our internet presence as well, that I was, kept working on over years, and then it kind of took off. So that was very positive. But now, no, people are staying at home. We're renovating different markets, whether it's a kitchen or a backyard or, your fireplace. They want to cozy things up. So yes, things are extremely busy right now. Right now it's fireplaces, and I think with the snowbirds, a lot of those clients have existing wood fireplaces, so they're looking at inserts. So they want to convert the wood to gas. They don't want to deal with the wood part of it, but they want it clean and easy and efficient, and that's been a major, major increase in our business. The cottage and chalet market has really increased, absolutely. We see that people, that's their staycation now, is either the backyard or their cottage with their close bubble of family. So there's no question that we've seen a big, big increase in that area as well. I've seen a change in the backyard because now the staycation, from my past, being in the pool business, one of our great clients was in the other day, and he's in the pool business. He's booking for 2022 for in-ground pools, okay? So I think what's happened now is that's brought everybody back home, and I think maybe down the road, maybe 3, 4, 5 years from now, we're still going to see people spending time in their backyards and staying home more. The barbecue area, really, we call it the backyard. So you walk out of your house into a backyard, and it kind of looks like that with the fencing and the sky and things like that. So that is just our fun room. It's just, there's a lot of cool gadgets there that has to do with dealing with charcoal and wood pellet barbecues. To go online, you're going to find, you just Google, romantic fireplaces will come up. The one nice thing about our work is that when the Google reviews and the Google pictures are phenomenal. We're uploading stuff every day. I have at least 1,000 jobs, real jobs that you can take a look at, either on the Google pictures on the drive, or if you go to our website at romanticfireplaces.com and click on Our Work, it's where we used to load lots of them up, but there's lots of pictures there too. But the great thing about that is they're real. There's testimonials there about people talking about our team. And our team here is unique to everybody else. It's two small teams, but these fellas work for me. They're our guys. So when they go into your home, they care as much about your house as you do.
He's the opinionated Ottawa icon.
The Rob Snow Show returns
on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
This is not looking after the needs of the future of young people and immigrants. In fact, let me go further and I'll close. For this last year and a half with the whole discussion around Black Lives Matter and minorities, there's been a great debate around structural racism. And people said, what is that? And I was one of them. What is this? Well, it's the policies that embed in our government policies and our practices that hurt people who are minorities. This policy will fall disproportionately on minorities. This is a form, unwitting, I'm not accusing anybody of being a racist. This is unwitting structural racism. It's going to hurt immigrants. It's going to hurt minorities. It's going to hurt young people, and it is absolutely wrong.
Okay, that was Professor Ian Lee bombarding the planning committee of the city council yesterday. My goodness gracious, you really let them have it.
I did.
What had you? You've made this case before on our show. So,
I have, because I was invited to testify last, I think it was May or June, when they were trying to limit the urban boundary. So everybody understands the issue. I mean, it was captured most succinctly in the headline in the Ottawa Citizen about a week or two ago. I've got the headline right here on my computer. January 16th, 2021. Draft report recommends creating a gold belt to limit sprawl. End quote. We are growing by another 40% forecast, from 1 million to about 1.4 million. Separately, and I pointed this out yesterday, Stats Canada has, in their various studies, have said this in recent times repeatedly. Going forward, almost all of the growth, population growth in Canada, will come from immigration. Separately, in separate studies, they have documented for at least 20, 30 years, the vast majority of our immigrants are now non-Caucasian. They're non-white. The European immigration has collapsed, and we have a very substantial immigration from China, from Asian countries, Middle East, Africa, and Indian subcontinent.
Sure.
And immigrants go to the burbs. This is well documented. This is not an opinion or a theory. They move to the burbs for the same reason young people move to the burbs, because the cost of land is much cheaper and the cost of housing is much cheaper.
Right.
These policies, whether it was 6 months ago to limit the urban, limit the expansion of the city, or this latest gold belt to limit sprawl, is designed to limit the supply of new houses, new land and new houses. The impact, the consequence, the outcome will be twofold. It will drive up the value most in the urban core of the most privileged, affluent people in the glebe.
Well, it's already doing that, in fact, right?
It's going to continue. It's going to accelerate it. And Old Ottawa South, let's name the culprits. Let's name the people who are doing this. And Westboro, and Sandy Hill by Ottawa U.
Yeah, Alta Vista, another place.
The second consequence, it's going to fall disproportionately on the shoulders of immigrants who are not Caucasian in the burbs because it's going to make those homes much more expensive.
Right. And younger buyers, right? And younger buyers.
Exactly.
Right.
And I argued, and I will continue to argue as strongly as I possibly can, our public policy should not be grounded in the greed of the most privileged people in society, and at the same time, adopting policies of effective structural racism that disproportionately discriminate against new Canadians who try to move to the burbs. This policy is the draft proposal is reprehensible. I am shocked that the mayor, who prides himself on being a liberal, small L, large L, he's for everybody and he's against racism.
Sure.
He has
well, everybody's against racism, right?
And
everybody's against.
By the way, there's no ducking this and say, as they will, and say, well, that's not our intent. Okay, I acknowledge that it's completely unintentional. It's not deliberate, but that doesn't change the impact or the outcome. It's going to limit the supply, drive up the cost of housing, which benefits the most privileged and powerful and affluent people in the core.
Well, then they would respond. They would respond by saying, "Well, that's why we need to build more affordable housing."
And simultaneously limiting the supply of houses in the suburbs. We don't.
But then then you're under the assumption that people want to live in government housing. Well, some people have loftier goals than living in government housing, right? Yeah.
We're already, I think it's $200 million in the ditch because of COVID. We have an aging population. They've already jacked the taxes from 2% to 3%, violating an earlier promise of the mayor. I realize he rescinded in the last election campaign, and we cannot afford to endlessly spend money on new affordable housing created by these racist, bankrupt policies.
But they would say, well, can we continuously afford to bring city services further and further and further out beyond the green belt, though?
Yes.
Right?
Where's my proof? They say, how can you say that? Because there's a country right to the south of us that has 330 million people, 10 times what Canada has done. Average house prices. My sister lives in Tucson. She's an American. And she's looking at buying a new home. I was looking with her online. 4-bedroom house in a good part of the city, not a fancy high-end, but not in a poor part.
How much?
4-bedroom, 2,000 square feet in the 300,000 range.
Yeah,
that's unthinkable. Okay, that's U.S. dollars.
Yeah.
Throw on the Canadian discount. So it's about 500,000. Can you imagine in Alta Vista or Hunt Club buying a 4-bedroom house, 2,000 square feet with a big backyard for 500,000 Canadian?
Yeah, sure. In 1985. Yeah, we'll just get the time machine. Okay, we got to run, Professor. We got to run. You're on fire today, but our time is right out. Great stuff. Always good to hear from you. We'll talk to you next week. Thanks.
Right.
Yeah, Professor Ian Lee. Ooh, does he get fired up sometimes? Sprott School of Business at Carleton. Rob Snow Show Talkback Hour. He is coming right up. City News.
is City News.
CIWW 1310 AM in Ottawa.
And CJET 1011 FM in Smith Falls and the Valley. Number 1 for local news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 1011 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Tuesday, January 26th. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa, -7 degrees. In Smith Falls, -6. And here's what's making news in Ottawa and the Valley. An update from the City of Ottawa and the plans for rolling out the COVID-19 vaccine. City News reporter Chris Curry's following this story and the update from the city this morning.
It's a lot of numbers and technical data, but here are the finer points. If you're not an essential worker or in a congregate setting, don't expect a shot in the arm for months, likely August. Mayor Jim Watson.
We need to manage everyone's expectations regarding the distribution of the vaccine and when it will become available to them.
Right now, 92% of long-term care residents have received their first shot, and once vaccines continue to flow into Ottawa, which is dependent on upper levels of government, those second shots will be prioritized. Then essential workers and those with high-risk illnesses in the second phase in that March to May timeframe, and then the general public after that. The city plans to administer over 10,000 doses per day. That's with Ottawa hospitals and community clinics set up, and when it's your turn to get a shot, the city will contact you. Chris Curry's City News.
And we also have breaking news this morning on COVID-19 vaccines. A Calgary company launching a human clinical trial of this potential made-in-Canada COVID drug. City News reporter Joey Keeney with more.
The company has already administered the first doses of their potential vaccine this morning. Providence Therapeutics says 60 people in Toronto will be monitored for 13 months, with the first results expected next month. Pending regulatory approval, a larger Phase 2 trial could follow in May. And if that is successful, the vaccine could be released by the end of the year. Now, currently, the federal government says we're on track for all Canadians to be inoculated by September. We'll have to wait and see how this will impact our vaccine rollout here in Canada. From the Breaking News Desk, I'm Joey Keeney.
City News time, 10:03. The province has earmarked an additional $11.8 million for prevention and also to contain COVID in long-term care homes just in the city alone. Minister of Long-Term Care Mary Lee Fullerton says this cash will be used for several things at various homes, like 24/7 screening of people entering that building, also the hiring of more staff to deal with an expanded workload and to cover off workers who are sick. Long-term care homes will also access cash for cleaning equipment and infection control measures. We are getting the latest numbers from the province on COVID-19 infections today. 1,740 new cases today. Of that number, 32 are in Ottawa, but none in Leeds, Grenville, Lanark, and none in Renfrew County. Some encouraging signs on the fight against COVID in the capital as well comes from the study of the city's wastewater. Researchers have been looking at those levels since last April. After fluctuating for months, Dr. Tyson Graber tells City News markers of the disease in the water started to plateau at the beginning of the year.
Cases were quite high throughout most of the month of January, and the wastewater indicated that we weren't really going up like a rocket. It was a steady burn, steady increase, and then it kind of plateaued for the last couple of weeks.
Now, the research associate at CHEO explains that the last 3 or 4 days have been quite promising. He says the urgent question now, the COVID-19 variants, which the wastewater levels are not yet able to detect. I'm Andrew Boyle for News Anytime. Follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
It's time to talk back
on the Rob Snow Show.
Have your say and call now.
613-750-1310.
Want to talk about vaccines or what's going on at the airport? Why don't we start with vaccines? That's happening right now. At Ottawa City Hall, we have this technical briefing underway. Do you have your City Hall feed of the technical briefing? This is kind of the local angle of the vaccine shortage and how Ottawa's going to cope with this. And it means for most ordinary people like me, like David's probably even behind me. August, don't even consider the idea that you'll be lining up to get a vaccine until sometime in August if you're just a regular person. You're not involved in health care in any way, or you don't have a a family member, a loved one in a long-term care facility, or a family member working in a long-term care facility or a healthcare setting. This is happening among the city officials right now, how they're dealing with all of this. Dr. Etches.
Between others outside of our household is critical for many months to come. We have done it before using these tools to reduce the level of COVID in our community, and doing that now, continuing those routine new behaviors that have become routine is actually going to make the vaccination program more effective. If we start with lower levels of COVID in our community, we'll be able to contain COVID with the vaccination program faster. So I do encourage all of us to continue to do our part and stick with those basics. Again, limiting our contacts with people outside of our household, just knowing that COVID has asymptomatic infections. It can be within our friends and family and circle of gathering with people close to us to really take care.
Right. So thanks, David. So, I mean, this is the message from Dr. Etches, is that right now we can't really count on vaccines because the deployment is going to be slow, right? So all the basic messaging and cautionary advice that we've heard since March of last year, it all still applies and will for the foreseeable future. It's wear a mask. Now some are wondering, should we all be wearing N95 medical grade masks because of the severity and the contagion of the variants? It's wash your hands, it's stay 6 feet apart, don't gather. All of these things still going to apply because of the situation with vaccines. So I want your honest opinion. Look, it's early days. It's the 26th day of January. Some wondered if we would even have vaccines by now. When it was even suggested that we would have vaccines by January of 2021, some people didn't even think that was possible. But nevertheless, they're here. The Trudeau government bragged about, acquiring all of these doses. So I would like to know, why don't we start with this? How would you describe the federal government's vaccine rollout? What words would you use? Okay, with news dropping that most of us here in Ottawa don't even think about it until August, okay? Just get it out of your head that you're going to get a vaccine sometime before August. How would you describe this vaccine rollout program so far, in your own words, okay? Is it going about as expected? Is it going better than expected? Is it acceptable, in your opinion, kind of where we are right now? Are you disappointed? Say disappointed but not surprised. It is the government, after all. Like, let me down one more time. Do you just call it slow? Is it slow? You wish it was faster, but we're talking about government, not known for being nimble, right? It's slow. Or are you going to be more critical than that? Is it embarrassing? Shameful? Is it a fiasco, a debacle? Is it a failure? Is it a failure? What's happening in Canada right now? 0 doses of Pfizer vaccine this week. 0. I mean, it's only the third week of January, but can you call it a failure? What the Trudeau government has managed to deliver, the vaccine rollout. 750-1310, 750-1310. 613-750-1310. Lines available. I'd love to hear from you. Okay, vaccine rollout. I once again found myself scrolling through ourworldindata.org this morning. This has kind of become part of my morning ritual. Is it part of your morning ritual, David? It looks like, yeah, I was doing that this morning too, right? Yeah.
It's hard not to do it. I get hooked on it. I need the data, man. I need it.
You're a data junkie.
Right into the veins. Mainline it. I need that.
I want to know, because when I look at this data, I want to know how we measure up compared to our other peer countries when it comes to getting shots into people's arms. Because this is the end game. The sooner people are vaccinated, the sooner we can get out of this hellscape that we've all been living in. With lockdowns and stay-at-home orders and curfews. I mean, show me someone who doesn't want to end it all, right? Wearing masks and bathing in hand sanitizer and, the isolation and staying away from people on all of it, right? The vast majority of Canadians, we've all had just about enough of this. So do you call this a success? I want you to explain it to me in your own words, okay? The vaccine rollout? How would you describe it? Disappointing, but, not surprising. It's early days. Is it acceptable because it's early days? Is it embarrassing, where we stand? You could say when you look at some of the data, it's kind of embarrassing. Especially when you listen to the Prime Minister and Anita Anand, and you see they went to the hospital and did the photo op, and they boasted for months about how much vaccine they procured. It's about the delivery now, people. Who cares about procurement? It's about delivery now. One chart, for example, at ourworldindata.org is titled Cumulative COVID-19 Vaccination Doses Administered per 100 People. This is counted, I'm quoting here, as a single dose and may not equal the total number of people vaccinated depending on the specific dose regime, for example, people receiving multiple doses. And the gold medal, it goes to Israel, still at 44. 44 out of every 100 people in Israel have been vaccinated at least once. In the United Arab Emirates, the number is 26. This was all as of this morning, 5 a.m. In the UK, it's 10.4. In the United States, 6.9. In Canada, 2.2. So it's not exactly world beating, right? It's better than some other first world countries. Germany is 2.1. Belgium's 1.5. You're wondering why the EU is saying, maybe we won't export some vaccine to Canada and other what they call third countries. Do you have that clip of that EU person? What is her name? Stella? Kyriakides, something like that?
I believe is how you say that.
Commissioner for Health and Food Safety since December 1st of 2019 for the European Union. This is what she said about exporting vaccines to non-EU member countries. Quote, go.
Pre-financed doses to be delivered as soon as possible. And we want our contract to be fully fulfilled. In addition, the Commission has today proposed to the 27 member states in the steering board that an export transparency mechanism will be put in place as soon as possible. The European Union has supported the rapid development and production of several vaccines against COVID-19 with a total of 2.7 billion euro. We want clarity on transactions and full transparency concerning the export of vaccines from the EU. In the future, all companies producing vaccines...
Oh, wait, sorry, David.
19 in the EU will have to provide early notification whenever they want to export vaccines to third countries. The European Union will take any action required to protect its citizens and rights.
Right? Isn't that interesting, right? We're a third country. They're talking about us, people. Our vaccine, our Pfizer vaccine, comes from Belgium, right? Belgium, 1.5, Norway, 1.4, Sweden, 1.5. Canada trailing other country, Iceland 4.5, Italy 2.4, Portugal 2.5, Spain 2.6, Romania 2.5, Slovenia 2.7. Like, we're doing worse than Slovenia, okay? That's where Melania Trump is from. That's one data point, okay? 2.2, come on. How do you describe that? How are we doing in this country? In your own words. Kumar, good morning.
Good morning, Rob.
In your own words, how do you think this vaccine program is going so far?
Yeah, I really appreciate your deep concern. 100% I agree with you that it could have been better. But at the same time, we are fighting with an unknown enemy here. that's the COVID. So there are a lot of variables which is unknown to everyone. And in my personal view, I think the government is taking all possible steps, right from financing, funding the people, and even the vaccine rollout. Everything is going. But there are, again, unknown factors like Pfizer suddenly saying that we cannot supply. So we don't have any other alternative. So that this is absolutely unknown to anybody. So even if they try their best, they cannot do anything. So we have to necessarily have more patience. And I think we should try to appreciate the government in some way or other. And then we have to put up with this. I don't think we can do
We have to
much
put up
about
with it. Okay.
Yeah.
We have to put up with it. We'll see if you're still saying that come August, Kumar. I'll be interested to talk to you in August.
No, I hope we are better off by August. Definitely.
Yeah, okay.
I really appreciate your concern.
No, I thank you for your call, sir. We'll be right back. Rob Snow Show, Talk Back Hour. I've talked enough. It's your turn now. This is City News.
So Rideau Rockcliffe Community Resource Centre has been around since 1982, and it's here to serve residents of Ward 13. So our focus is on helping to reduce poverty in this community, as well as empowering residents to find resilience within themselves. So one of the new focuses of our centre is around food programming. So you'll notice today when we go around on a little tour that we have a number of food programs here at the centre. So one being obviously our emergency food program, which is really great. So residents can come and access food when they are in need. We also have a number of food-based social enterprises here at Rideau Rockcliffe as well. So one being the Ottawa Good Food Box, another being Market Mobile. One of our new initiatives that started this year as response to COVID is called Good Food on the Move, and it's a click and collect online store, and we have 7 pickup locations throughout the city. More sort of local here for Ward 13 residents, we've also started a free produce market as well. So community members can come on Wednesdays and Fridays and be able to access additional free fruits and vegetables.
Social Harvest Ottawa is one of the social enterprises here at the Rideau Rockcliffe Community Resource Centre. We operate this great urban greenhouse, and our work is not only to grow nutritious and delicious food, but also to nourish communities with community members here in Ward 13 and beyond. The greenhouse is a year-round project. We're a team of 4 employees working here. We have 2 full-time employees and 2 part-time employees. We focus on growing microgreens from late fall to early spring, and hothouse crops in the summertime, such as tomatoes and cucumbers.
The Mission Food Truck we're in our 5th week of collaborating with them to come visit our center, and we just got in on it at the right time. They were looking for new communities to branch out to. They said absolutely. Right now they're funded through donations. They travel around Ottawa and just give out delicious, fresh, hot food to people as well. We have at our center the Ottawa Good Food Box, as well as the Market Mobile. So Ottawa Good Food Box has been around for 25 years, and Market Mobile is a little younger, started in 2014. So they both have the mission and the mandate of making fresh food more accessible and affordable in neighborhoods that lack access to a grocery store. So I think the greatest need that we've seen as a result of the pandemic in our community is people that we maybe have never needed to access our services before, right? So a lot of people have had, layoffs. Maybe they're just not able to work because they have to stay home with their children, over the summer, that sort of thing. So we've definitely seen the need go out, particularly for our food programming, as well as some of our counseling services as well. So it's a heavy time for people emotionally.
Back.
Hello. On the Rob Snow Show. The phone lines are open at 613-750-1310.
Now, the Rob Snow Show continues.
How would you describe the vaccine rollout so far? Good, bad, or ugly? You could take your pick from those 3, I suppose. Jason, calling from Kingston. Good morning, Jason. Morning, Jason.
So here's the way I see it.
All right.
The role of the government is to act on behalf and defend the population. Every day, people are dying and becoming ill with life-altering illness. So although it's an imposition for me wearing a mask, there are a significant chunk of the population that is dying and having life-altering illness. So the government has failed in this because obviously they're falling behind all these other developed countries, and they're failing the population. So it is embarrassing.
Okay. Well, it sounds like you would go even further. You call it a failure by the sounds of things.
It is a failure. It absolutely is. And if you look at, you can look around online. You can see that we have astronomical numbers of the vaccines that we're purchasing, and a lot of those will be going to other countries donated, and I think that's a great thing. But I got to wonder if that's not impacting our purchasing methods and our purchasing powers. Those other vaccines have been donated. Yeah, it's pretty bad. That's a pretty
bad. Okay. All right. Okay.
Like I said, it's an inconvenience for the masks, but we got to remember that there are people that will have their lifestyle altered forever because of the illness and death. That every day is due to not the virus, but the government's lack of action in getting the vaccine.
Okay. Thank you, Jason. Jason, calling it embarrassing, calling it a failure. 750-1310, 750-1310. How would you describe the vaccine rollout so far? Anne, Ottawa, good morning. You're on City News.
Oh, my goodness. Was that guy a Liberal voter? The typical guy that just...
Well, I don't know. He called it embarrassing. He called it embarrassing.
No. The first guy he talked to...
Oh, the first guy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
no, the last guy's fine. This is completely embarrassing. And the first guy who was defending his record is ignoring the fact that he had this deal set up with China that fell through. And in December, as has been widely reported, Trudeau did not sign us up with Moderna, millions of doses of Moderna, like the rest of the world was doing.
16 million doses.
I don't care if the other guy is satisfied with this. I am not. I want to get on with my life and not have to worry for mortal danger going into a store.
Right.
I can't live like this. It's making me crazy. And
you didn't have far to go to begin with, Anne.
I know. But the thing is, our economy can't get back on track until we're all vaccinated. So this is really, really bad.
It's very important, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Anne. Always good. Okay. Right. Great stuff. Yeah. Long-time caller. You're allowed to kind of make jokes when they're long-time callers like that. Okay. Here's another one. Our world in data. Okay. Our world in data. Daily number of COVID-19 vaccinations administered per 100 people. This is shown as a 7-day average, a rolling 7-day average. Note, again, counted as a single dose may not equal the total number of people vaccinated, depending on the specific dose regime. For example, people receiving multiple doses. So in Canada, this number, because it's good to get these data points, right? In Canada, this number is 0.09. 0.09, not 9.0 or 0.9, but 0.09. Whereas in Israel, this number is 2.04. In the UK, it's 0.53. Portugal, Romania, still better than Canada, 0.19. We're 0.09. In the United States, 0.34. In the UAE, 0.87. Sweden, Spain, Slovenia, Slovakia, all doing better than Canada. They're at 0.1. We're at 0.09 as of this morning. Just data, okay? In your words, how do you think this is going, in your opinion? Phil, Orleans, how is it going?
How you doing?
The vaccine how rollout. Is it going well? Is it acceptable at this point? Because it's early days. It's government. Mistakes happen. What do you think?
To me, it's like a bad commercial being replayed over and over.
Okay. Where's the meat? Okay. No, go ahead. Sorry, Phil.
We keep hearing the same thing.
Yep.
Nothing seems to be. Actually, it's going from bad to worse. We're at zero vaccine imports.
That's right. Zero shipments of the Pfizer vaccine. Yeah.
Can it get any worse? Minus something? I don't know.
Yeah, they could start taking it from us, right? And don't give them any ideas, Phil. Don't give them any ideas.
Oh, don't start that.
No.
Anyways.
So you don't think it's going very well, Phil, right? You don't think it's going very well?
I think it's going from bad to terrible.
From bad to terrible. Okay, all right.
And my opinion is the other countries are realizing where they do make these vaccines that they are going to.
We now want to hoard them, right? I played you that clip from the commissioner, right?
Words out of my mouth.
Yeah.
They're going to hoard the vaccines until their populations are vaccinated.
Yeah.
And then maybe they'll get to us.
Yeah, it's a very good point, Phil. Thank you. Thank you for your call. Well, but let's play the EU person again from the European Union Commissioner for Health and Food Safety, Stella Kyriakides, I believe is how this is pronounced, on 27 EU member countries want some new rules about just how much of this vaccine we're going to export.
We want clarity on transactions and full transparency concerning the export of vaccines from the EU. In the future, all companies producing vaccines against COVID-19 in the EU will have to provide early notification whenever they want to export vaccines to third countries. The European Union will take any action required to protect its citizens and rights.
Now, so that is from Brussels. This is from Ottawa City Hall. So this is Councillor Matt Luloff. Orleans Award, right? He asked Anthony DeMonte, who's running the whole show on vaccines here in Ottawa, hey, Mr. DeMonte, do you happen to know when the next shipment of vaccines are coming in? Let's listen to this.
Have we been advised as to when we can expect to receive our next shipment of the vaccine?
We have not. We've got some preliminary information from the province, but as you can understand, because of the announcement of the stoppage in vaccine, the moment of pause now is asking every public health unit and the hospitals to do the analysis of what they have. That's being fed up, and then they're looking at, as Dr. Etches mentioned, our priority long-term care. Let's get their second doses, and then what do we have left? What needs to be moved around? So there have been numbers put out. Batches that we're supposed to get, but I think the more prudent thing now is to wait till we get official word, and I think that's what the province is doing right now, doing a broad analysis.
So that would be a no. When will the next shipment of vaccine come in, Mr. DeMonte? Do you know?
Voulez-vous que je réponde en français ou en if there's gaps, and I'm sure the province then will step in to assist us if we have gaps, because then we have some challenges. Dr. Etches,
okay,
I leave it
that's
to you.
Fine. He doesn't know. He doesn't know. The answer is no. Do you know when the next shipment is coming in? The answer is no. Halftime, Talkback Hour, Rob Snow Show, City News.
#1 for local news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Tuesday, January 26th. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa and Smiths Falls, -6 degrees. And here's what's making news this hour. It's a day of encouraging news on the COVID front. New cases in the city have dropped to 32 in the latest provincial numbers released. There are 18 more cases in the Eastern Ontario Health Unit. Just one in Leeds, Grenville, Lanark, and Renfrew. And the province did have 1,740 new cases today. Make that no new cases in Leeds, Grenville, Lanark, and Renfrew today. Also, a Calgary pharmaceutical company says it has encouraging news from trials of its COVID vaccine in development right now. Human trials have begun for that company, which is Providence. It says it could have a vaccine ready for public use by the end of this year. Signs of COVID decline in Ottawa extend to the wastewater. Researchers have been studying wastewater for months in Ottawa. They say after a steady increase over the level month over month, January has actually shown a drop. Researchers, though, do say they cannot detect the COVID variants in wastewater just yet. The province has announced an additional $11.8 million for long-term care homes in and around the city. 27 homes will be receiving more cash to help with COVID prevention measures and staffing. City News Time, 10:33. I'm Andrew Boyle. For News Anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
It's time to talk back
On the Rob Snow Show.
Have your say and call now.
613-750-1310.
How would you describe the vaccine rollout so far in Canada? Good, bad, complicated? Fiasco, farcical, debacle, big success? Just be patient? It's government. Problems are bound to come up. I'll tell you what, it's on display from one end of the country to the other. The scrambling having to take place at the local level all across the country. Today is Ottawa's turn, okay, with this technical briefing happening at Ottawa City Hall. The Ottawa story is just one of many stories being told. It's happening in every city hall and town hall all across the country because of this vaccine rollout and the Pfizer news about cutting shipments to zero for at least a week and then significant cuts for the following weeks. The Vancouver Sun this morning, headline, big headline, BC's vaccine supplies dry up. Dr. Bonnie Henry warns Pfizer has made further and more drastic cuts to vaccine supply in British Columbia. The Calgary Herald. Alberta administers only 240 doses of COVID-19 vaccine. Alberta's pace of inoculations has slowed drastically, likely because of a shortage due to a disruption to shipments of the Pfizer product. Regina Leader Post. 240 new cases, 1 death. Vaccinations slow to a trickle. Winnipeg Free Press. Provinces push back vaccination plans as Pfizer deliveries grind to a halt. Montreal Gazette. Oh, this is a heck of a story in the Gazette this morning. Quebec residents of private seniors' homes face COVID-19 vaccine delay. It is a national fiasco, tragedy playing out in real time and right before our eyes. Listen to this from the Gazette. This is going to cost lives, this delay. They're talking about late March now. 2 months from now, before things are back to normal. This is in the Gazette this morning. Monday was supposed to be the first day of a mass campaign to vaccinate 140,000 residents of private seniors' homes in Quebec. However, only 9,000 have been vaccinated to date, said Marjorie Côté-Boileau, spokesperson for the health minister, Christiane Dubé. An overhaul of Pfizer's production facilities in Belgium is being blamed for decreased deliveries to Canada. As such, Quebec will fall well short of its goal of administering 250,000 doses of vaccine by the 8th of February. A little more than 1.2 million doses are expected in Quebec by March 29th. It's only January 26th, for crying out loud. Pfizer said it will make up for the shortfall with larger deliveries in the weeks. 93% of all doses received in Quebec have been administered. This is from the Canadian Press this morning, the newswire for Canadian Press. Some provinces were forced to push back vaccination for healthcare workers and vulnerable seniors Monday as deliveries from a major manufacturer ground to a temporary halt. Canada is not due to receive any Pfizer vaccine this week as the company revamps its operation. Deliveries expected to be slow for the next few weeks. Ontario announced Monday is pausing COVID-19 vaccinations of long-term care staff and essential caregivers so it can focus on giving the shots to all nursing home residents. Saskatchewan announced Sunday it had exhausted all of its doses. Quebec has used up more than 90% of its supply. In British Columbia, the provincial health officer said the government is extending the interval between the two doses. The Manitoba government has also said it may soon have to put off some second-dose vaccine appointments as a result of the disruptions. Prime Minister Trudeau stressed the delay is only temporary, and Canada is expected to receive 4 million doses of the Pfizer vaccine by the end of March. Well, now it's only the end of January. Mr. Prime Minister, with all wouldn't you love it if a reporter at Rideau Cottage said to the Prime Minister and asked the Prime Minister today, how many Canadians will die between now and the end of March who could have lived but for the vaccine disruption? Will a reporter ask the Prime Minister that today, please? What kind of assurance is that? It will be better 2 months from now. That is on this Prime Minister and his government. More than happy to do a victory lap and photo ops when the first doses were going into the first arms. Well, you know what? There's an age-old question in politics and life, Mr. Trudeau, and it's this. What have you done for me lately? So I don't think it's going very well. How about you, Irene? Sorry. Go ahead, Irene.
Oh, my goodness. You said what I was going to say. I find it's insulting the way that we're being talked to, and chaotic. I mean, I don't understand how liberals can sleep at night, like the politicians. We were told in December that there was only going to be, 3 million Canadians vaccinated by the end of March. In January, they spun it. They gave us false hope, all these lies. Look at all we're buying, 20 million more Pfizer. And now everything is stopped. And yesterday, the Prime Minister said, well, we'll have 2 million by the end of March. So I'm frustrated. I feel they're incompetent. They and by getting the provinces to take care of it, they figure the provinces are going to take the heat. But it's the federal that's responsible for getting these vaccines, and they didn't do a good job.
Okay. Thank you, Irene. Thank you. Yep. Our question, again, before I all got worked up there, and I apologize for that. I'm trying to keep the yelling to a minimum. Doctor says it's bad for the blood pressure, and quite frankly, it's bad for my mental health. But the question is, how's it going? Like, seriously, just give me your honest opinion on this vaccine rollout. Greg, Orleans. Good morning, Greg.
Good morning, Rob.
Yeah. How do you think it's going?
So, yeah, let me give you a slightly different perspective. What if I said it's going exactly the way I expected it to go?
Right.
We don't have a very good memory. Look back to wave one, Trump saying that 3M can only sell masks to U.S. Canada, you're out of luck. Everyone else, you're out of luck. And we're starting to see a similar kind of behavior now with the vaccines. And the second thing is, when you look at how this is going, it's become political. Become a campaign thing. They've turned purchase orders into plans instead of waiting for the vaccine to actually get in our hands. And then the provinces, like multiple levels of governments, have screwed this up. They've changed the dosing parameters because they wanted to try to get more out because they thought, hey, it's coming. Again, making plans without having something in your hands. So it's like, I don't think it's simple and say, well, look, they screwed up because we don't have the doses we're supposed to have. They screwed up because they turned this into a political thing. And of course, now it's blown up in their face because they made plans based on purchase orders instead of something that was actually in their hands.
Okay. All right.
That's my thought.
Got it, Greg. Thank you. Okay, let's play the local angle of this is when is Ottawa going to get the next shipment of its Pfizer vaccine? Or is that even a certainty now? Anthony DeMonte is the senior staff member in charge of our vaccine rollout. Matt Luloff is the city councillor for Orleans Ward. Is he not in charge of the Community Protective Services Committee now? Does he not head that committee now, right?
now.
So that's a pretty big committee in all of this. So play this, okay?
Have we been advised as to when we can expect to receive our next shipment of the vaccine?
We have not. We've got some preliminary information from the province, but as you can understand, because of the announcement of the stoppage in vaccine, the moment of pause now is asking every public health unit and the hospitals to do the analysis of what they have.
So still no is still the answer there, right? No, they don't know.
We have not.
Yeah, we have not. No, they don't know that. The preliminary. John, Ottawa. John, how's this vaccine program working for you, John? You think it's going okay or what?
Yeah. Hi, Rob.
Hi, John.
Hi, Rob. Keep well with your mental health and your blood pressure. I think you're doing a great job. My view on the vaccine thing is I'm a bit concerned, and, people aren't allowed to go to churches during this time. Small businesses have already been affected. I've maintained that one day Big Pharma will replace the church. It seems to be happening in other places. The problem is Canada does not have, the other guy who spoke about the masks and stuff is quite right. Canada doesn't really have much of a pharmaceutical industry. So, if we're moving into a viral age, Canada better get their S together and really be prepared for future waves of this or things that are worse than that. I'm worried about new things like paper mache lungs from these Chinese masks that are available that we're wearing that are creating problems.
Well, I'm trying not to. I'll tell you what, here's another piece of advice. Don't borrow worries from the future, okay? We have enough to worry about right now without worrying about paper mache lung, for crying out loud.
Yeah, but we don't. Canada, we were just talking about the Biden thing there going on. Canada doesn't have industries. We have all these resources, and we're not protecting our own. It's quite right what the guy said about the 3M masks. We didn't see this coming. I mean, they opened up a vaccination center in Toronto. 5 days later, they have to shut it down.
Oh, yeah, it was sooner than that. It was. Thank you, John. We're a little off topic there. But, with the convention center in Toronto, the Metro Convention Center was open for 2 days, and they had to close it down. 750-1310, final quarter coming up for the Talkback Hour. Rob Snow Show, City News.
Well, we're celebrating our 43rd year. It's still family operated. We're in our second generation. We, pre-COVID, we're at about 1,000 employees. We have 20 stores from coast to coast in Canada. We do our own manufacturing. Right here in Ottawa, we have about 160 people that support Canadian-made manufacturing in addition to our retail stores. Taking you back to mid-March and the impact of the pandemic on Lee Valley. Lee Valley was actually in a tough spot. We had just launched our website a few months prior to that, and we were going through, a fairly typical deployment dive where your customers retract as they adjust to the website. And then under stress already, this pandemic hit. And in the early days, it was pretty critical. It hit us really hard. Stores were closed. We weren't sure what to do, so we had to go right into survival mode. As a result, we had to take our workforce almost back to half of where we were at because the stores were closed, and with 20 stores, that's a big retail workforce. But what we were able to do pretty quickly, with a little luck, being essential, selling tools and hardware, we were able to adjust our business model, with respect to the stores and our fulfillment operation. That new website that we were under stress worked out well for us because as the world was under house arrest, people were looking to online, and the conversion to our online sales in some cases almost doubled. And we saw tremendous interest in things to do at home. Where we were lucky once again and fortunate is that our product offering. Work at home tools, craft, hobbies, backyard, container gardening, you name it. What we sold was really appealing to people. With respect to our stores, Lee Valley, a rare unknown fact was that we were one of the pioneers of curbside pickup. We've been doing it for 25 years. Pretty much dove right into the application to help with the contactless shopping right away. We took the application, and it's not like a Apple application where you have to download it to your phone and clutter up your phone. This is literally resides right on our website. So you walk into our store with your phone, you pull up our website, and there's a little scan icon. You just tap that, select your store, off you go. You go through the showroom, you scan product, you can read more about it, you can check the on hand, you can add it to your cart, continue to shop, and when you're ready, you just submit it to the counter. We'll go pick it for you. We'll call out your name, we'll check you out, send you on your way. You haven't touched anything. It's completely safe, and it's using a device you're comfortable with and a website that you're familiar with. Amazingly, 9 out of 10 people that used it loved it and want to use it again.
Back.
Hello. On the Rob Snow Show. The phone lines are open at 613-750-1310.
Now, the Rob Snow Show continues.
I remember news conferences past during the Daily Doug, the Doug Ford, the 1 o'clock. And maybe the Queen's Park media is just a little tougher than the press gallery these days because there were reporters there and they would hammer away at Doug Ford. Do you feel personally responsible for the deaths in long-term care? Reporters would ask Doug Ford, do you feel personally responsible when a person dies in long-term care? Is that your fault when people die in long-term care, Premier Ford? Do you feel personally responsible? Don't you feel you have a personal responsibility about that? Over and over and over again, they would ask him that question, especially that guy from Global News, Travis. They stopped taking his questions from Global News for a while. They wouldn't even take his questions. Well, I wonder if one of the reporters during the Rideau Cottage briefing at 11:15 today will ask the Prime Minister, do you feel personally responsible when a person dies because they couldn't get a vaccine until the end of March? Interesting to see what happens. Just the raw numbers, the total numbers from our worldindata.org. COVID-19 vaccine doses administered. Total number of vaccine doses administered, counted as a single dose. In Canada, the number as of this morning was just shy of 840,000. 839,449. But they're 2-dose vaccines. So what are we talking about? They're more like 420,000 Canadians. Right? So I don't know. It's not a very good number. 840,000. 840,000. In Israel, it's 3.8 million. Across the entire EU, the number is 9 million. Italy, 1.4. Spain, 1.2. Turkey, 1.3. UAE, 2.5. UK, 7 million. In the United States has vaccinated 23 million people now. Probably a few of them are Canadians who went to the United States because it's easier to get the vaccine there. But how would you describe the vaccine program as it stands right now, right? Dennis, Ottawa. Good morning, Dennis.
Good morning, sir.
Yes, sir. How would you describe it? Do you think this is going okay? Do you think it's a disaster? I mean, where are you on this vaccine rollout so far?
All of the adjectives you used and more, it's criminal.
Criminal. Okay. All right.
I'm just looking at the numbers that you started to look at.
Yeah.
And I don't know what the hell Ontario is doing, but they've received 411,000, and they've just managed to give out 286,000. Okay, 115,000 doses are sitting in a friggin' fridge.
Yeah.
There's nothing to give out.
Yeah.
To me, it's far more advantageous to have two people with 50% immunity than one person.
Well, this is a raging debate within the medical community right now. Let's say you have 100,000 doses. Do you give 50,000 out to half the people, or do you give all 100,000 of it out and wait for the next shipment to come in?
Well, the point is, there's no benefit to having it sit in a fridge. Right. And maybe we need to do something at the Saskatchewan Miracle. Somehow or other, they've only had 32,725 delivered, but they've administered 33,353 for 101.9% administration. I don't know how they do that.
Yeah, I don't know. I read that this morning in the Leader Post, and even the reporters there that can't quite figure out what's going on there. I don't know if there's monkeying around with the numbers there or what. So
the other point I'd like to bring out, trying to make me feel like a friggin' traitor for looking at trying to get to the States. Well, I'll tell you what happened in our situation. 10 days ago, we signed on to Florida to try to get a shot.
Oh.
We had reservations to fly out yesterday.
Okay.
But on Friday, when the governor down there said they'd only give it to residents, canceled our reservation. Subsequent to that, we found out that if you had a lease down there or you were visiting friends, you could get a shot. Yesterday morning.
Yeah, I thought, did I not read it? You could be a seasonal resident, though, could you not?
That's right.
And is that what you are? You're a seasonal resident there? Or?
Yesterday morning, my wife and I each got 2 phone calls from Broward Health giving us appointments for tomorrow.
Oh.
Fortunately, we're still here. Well, I don't feel I would have been a traitor to go down there because this friggin'...
Okay. All right. Okay. I can let you get away with the first word, but I can't let you say it repeatedly on the air, okay? Still kind of a family show. James, good morning, James.
Morning.
Yes. How would you describe what's happening here? Is this?
It's a total disaster. We are in a race in time against the new variants coming, particularly the UK variant. The government doesn't seem to want to tighten up travel from UK or South Africa or Brazil. So it's a total disaster. The other thing to note is that everyone seems to think in March to July, phase 2, there's going to be tons of vaccines. Not true. They're only going to be doing adults over 80. So my parents who are 79 will not be getting it till August. They're doing adults over 80, adults in the congregate care settings, essential workers, people with high-risk chronic illnesses. So, for example, my parents at 79 will not be getting it till August. So it's going to be there's going to be people dying all summer. Much less important, but also good to start thinking about is that we are not going to be having things like the Blues Fest or Ottawa Atletico or the Red
Canada Day, whatever, right? Who knows?
That's all gone. The summer is going to be more like last summer than it's going to be more similar to last summer. The spring, the taps don't come on in March. This thing about there's going to be tons, if you can't get 75-year-olds vaccinated till August, that's a big problem, especially with this new variant coming.
Plus, here's what I'm curious about. Now, Pfizer says, we're going to honor it. We'll send you even more at the end of March, right? 4 million doses. But then we listen, let's play this EU commissioner again, what she said yesterday. Play that again.
We want clarity on transactions and full transparency concerning the export of vaccines from the EU. In the future, all companies producing vaccines against COVID-19 in the EU will have to provide early notification whenever they want to export vaccines to third countries. The European Union will take any action required to protect its citizens and rights.
Wow. So James, I got to...
Phase 2 will be a disaster unless they pull out of the hat and they really work on getting Oxford, AstraZeneca or Johnson & Johnson in here. So the Prime Minister and the Premier should be on the phone to those guys. Now, the third thing is that phase 3, starting in August, the Prime Minister is promising everyone vaccinated by September. Well, that's a mathematical impossibility. If you're starting with 75-year-olds, 79-year-olds in August, The Surgeon General for the military, Canadian military, says that his essential staff will not be done till December. So I can't even see all of Canada being done this fall.
Gonna run, James. Gonna run. I want to fit in a few more. Thank you, Barbara.
Hi.
Hi, Barbara. How is this vaccine program going, in your opinion?
I'm not very happy with it, definitely.
Not very happy, okay.
I'm one of the essential caregivers who's waiting for my second vaccine. This is the second consecutive week that it's been canceled.
Right.
So I'm now...
So you've had one dose already?
I've had one dose, and now I'm approaching my full month of waiting for the second one, because this is my second round of cancellations.
Right. So it's January 26th. When did you get your first dose?
December the 26th.
Oh, on Boxing Day. Okay. So exactly a month ago.
No, it was the 28th.
28th. Okay. Yeah. So a month this Thursday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I have really two questions that I don't think I have had answered adequately.
Yeah.
One is what the actual contract that Canada has with Pfizer. That do we have a very vague sort of wishy-washy thing where, give us X number of vaccines within the first quarter, which is what I've often heard, or do we have a specific give us X number of vaccines per week? I've never heard Trudeau ever answer a question like that. It's always just sort of, political stuff where they don't really answer questions. And the second question I have is how Pfizer feels about the delay that we're having with not getting our vaccine in time. I've always heard them say that they want the 21 days because that's what all of their statistics are based on.
Right. Yeah, but it's hard to do that if you don't have the supply, right? So, it's all well and good for them to say, we recommend everybody get the second dose within 21 days. Well,
but am I going to be still protected if I go my 42 days without getting a vaccine?
We had one of the leading experts in the country on the program about 2 weeks ago who said she's pretty confident that you'll have some kind of protection 12 weeks later, 3 months later.
Okay, because I'd like to hear Pfizer say that.
Yeah. Okay. Gotta run, Barbara. Thank you. Thank you for all your calls. Wayne, Helen, we're going to get back into this topic tomorrow. Don't worry. You can call me back tomorrow for the Talkback Hour, but we have to run now. City News is coming up. Andrew Boyle. This is the Rob Snow Show.
This is City News.
CIWW 1310 AM in Ottawa.
And CJET 1011 FM in Smiths Falls and the Valley. number one for local news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Tuesday, January 26th. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa and Smiths Falls, -6 degrees. Here's what's making news in Ottawa and the Valley. An update from the City of Ottawa and the plan for rolling out COVID-19 vaccines. Our City News reporter Chris Curries is following this story.
It's a lot of numbers and technical data, but here are the finer points. If you're not an essential worker or in a congregate setting, don't expect a shot in the arm for months, likely August. Mayor Jim Watson.
We need to manage everyone's expectations regarding the distribution of the vaccine and when it will become available to them.
Right now, 92% of long-term care residents have received their first shot, and once vaccines continue to flow into Ottawa, which is dependent on upper levels of government, those second shots will be prioritized. Then essential workers and those with high-risk illnesses in the second phase in that March to May timeframe, and then the general public after that. The city plans to administer over 10,000 doses per day. That's with Ottawa hospitals and community clinics set up, and when it's your turn to get a shot, the city will contact you. Chris Curries, City News.
Now the vaccine supply and also new travel restrictions. They are likely the focus as the Prime Minister prepares for a regular COVID-19 update to all of us. City News Parliament Hill reporter Cormac McSweeney with that story.
The current shortage of our COVID vaccines is being caused by Pfizer upgrading its plant in Europe in order to boost production. But there are new fears growing as the European Union considers export restrictions of vaccines that are produced in the EU. That could have a big impact on Canada since we get both our Pfizer and Moderna doses from Europe. Canada does, however, have a trade deal in place with the EU, so it's not clear whether we would get an exemption. The Prime Minister will likely face a lot of questions on this when he speaks in moments. During question period yesterday, he assured the country the vaccine disruptions are only temporary.
We are still on track to vaccinating over 3 million Canadians by the end of Q1 and everyone who wants it by September.
This all comes as the federal cabinet also considers new travel restrictions in addition to the current testing and 14-day quarantine rules. We could be moving to the Australia model where anyone coming into the country is forced to quarantine in a monitored hotel at their own expense. Cormac McSweeney, Parliament Hill.
City News Time, 11:03. The province has earmarked an additional $11.8 million for prevention and to contain COVID in long-term care homes in Ottawa. Minister of Long-Term Care Mary Lee Fullerton says the cash will be used for several things, including screening of people entering homes at all hours of the day. 27 homes in Ottawa will receive cash in this latest battle against the second wave of COVID-19. Wastewater data from the city is showing some positive signs now. Dr. Tyson Graber is a research associate with CHEO. He tells City News the markers started to plateau at the beginning of the new year after month-over-month increases since April. New cases of COVID-19 in the city have dropped to 32 today, according to provincial stats. There are also 18 in the Eastern Ontario Health Unit, but none in both Leeds, Grenville, Lanark, and Renfrew. The province did have 1,740 new cases today from about 30,700 tests completed. I'm Andrew Boyle for News Anytime. Follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Strong voice.
Strong opinions.
Rob Snow Show returns on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Oh, Rob Snow Show returns with Jagmeet Singh, the leader of Canada's New Democrats. Good morning, Mr. Singh.
Good morning, Mr. Snow.
Yeah, it's very nice to hear from you, sir. I appreciate you taking the time. I know it's a busy time for you. The Prime Minister is going to speak in about 10 minutes from now from that familiar perch called Rideau Cottage. I just spent an hour taking calls from my listeners. They're very frustrated with the pace of vaccines and the news that there will be no doses delivered to Canada. Now there's this news out of Europe that export restrictions are being mauled. How would you describe the vaccine rollout from the Trudeau government right now, Mr. Singh?
The vaccine rollout is not good. We've got a really serious problem. People are deeply concerned. And I think it really goes back to months ago when we pointed out that the federal government didn't have a clear plan. when Australia, similar country, similar limitations or barriers with respect to a federal and a provincial or state legislature. We look at UK, they both had very thorough plans out that include procurement and rollout well in advance of the actual dates of approval. And when we asked the similar thing of Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, where is the plan? There was no plan to be seen. And now the outcome is, because it wasn't a clear plan, we are now in a situation where we are right now struggling to get the doses that we need.
What do you think could be improved here? Because the Prime Minister seems to be saying, well, I don't want to put words in his mouth, but more doses will be arriving in late March, and what can we do? They're retooling a plant to increase the output. What do you think about that rationale there?
Well, the problem is that all countries are facing the same problem, the same challenges, and other countries have done a better job in terms of pre-planning. And the results are very clear. When you don't have a good plan, the rollout suffers and the procurement suffers. That's something that could have been done better. In addition, something that we've called for is the fact that the Conservative government got rid of our capacity to produce vaccines in our own country. We're one of the largest economies in the world, and we can't produce these vaccines. That's completely unacceptable. It's so wrong. And what we said is that, sure, the Conservatives are to be blamed because we lost the capacity with the Conservatives, and they shut down one of the publicly owned facilities, Connaught Labs. But the Liberals have been in power for decades after that decision. They could have reinstated the capacity. That needs to be something we think about in the long term. This is not going to be the last pandemic, and we need to be able to produce vaccines in our own country domestically, and that's why we put forward an idea that we should restart the publicly owned Crown Corporation of Connaught Lab, the same idea that we should be able to produce this here in Canada.
Like Canadian Vaccine Corporation, CVC. That has a nice ring to it, doesn't it, Mr. Singh? The CVC, Canadian Vaccine Corporation. You run with that, Mr. Singh. Okay.
You know what? I might take that name up on you. But I mean, it's something that we've had a legacy of. We produced the first ever insulin in Canada, and we produced vaccines regularly. In fact, the first time we opened up Connaught Lab was at the time there was a diphtheria outbreak, and the vaccines were too expensive. So Canada, as a government, we decided as a nation, let's be able to produce this here at home. And now it shows that was the right decision. It should not have been ended, and let's get it started again.
What should be happening at the airports? There's some speculation the Prime Minister may speak to further travel restrictions, perhaps including mandatory quarantine in a hotel at the traveler's expense. What do you think should happen, given the situation at the airports?
I think that we should always look at best practices around the world. And when it comes to the quarantine idea at a hotel, it's been very effective in New Zealand, one of the countries that's had a remarkable response to COVID-19. So, and Australia as well. So these are things that have been done in other countries. It's something that has worked. That's something we should definitely consider. The travel in general, it's harder to travel within our country. Right now, it's harder to travel to the Atlantic than it is to travel internationally and to come back. So we've got to look at that. People have made a lot of sacrifices. People are having a hard time visiting family or can't visit family even in a nearby city if you live in Ontario right now with the lockdown order. So it's been tough. And given how difficult it's been, there needs to be a similar approach when it comes to travel. We've got to do everything we can. I want to focus in on workplace transmission, though, and making sure people can get paid sick leave. But everything we can do to fight this spread is important.
Well, let's jump right into that issue then, because the last time I had you on the program, you pointed out that there is a paid sick day program, Canada Sickness Recovery Benefit, right? You pressured the government, the federal government, into offering those paid sick days.
Correct.
It's 10 days. You can apply twice to collect the full 10 days. It's not a lot of money. It's $450 a week after tax. Is that good enough? Why isn't that good enough?
Well, we said when it first was introduced that there was problems with it. One, it's not good enough in the sense that it doesn't cover someone's pay. And what we want is to end any sort of this impossible choice between, do I go into work sick or do I stay at home and not make enough to pay my bills? And so if it's not going to cover someone's day's work, then it's going to make it harder for someone to take it. So we've said, since it was introduced, we said it should have been enough to cover someone's pay. It should be flexible. The other problem is that you can only take 5 days at a time. Well, what if someone wakes up sick, thinks they have some symptoms, wants to take a day or two to see if they resolve, to figure it out? but they can't. They only have an option of taking 5 days. Well, they say, well, I don't want to take 5 days off, and maybe it's not worth it. We've got to make this easy. And these are what the public health experts are saying. Flexible days off is going to help give someone a chance to go in and take a test. Maybe they need a couple of days to get that test done instead of taking the 5 days. The second thing, or the third thing, is we need to make sure that the time right now is you apply after the fact, and it could take up to a week, sometimes longer, to receive the pay. People are living check to check. They can't wait that long to receive the pay, so we've got to speed it up. These are some of the changes that we can make, and it can be done right away. This is a federal program that we put in place. Really proud that we fought and won this for people, but there's changes that need to be made, and we're fighting for those changes.
Yeah, I gather some of the problems right now, whereas when CERB was first launched, it was relatively easy, actually, to get someone on the phone and explain something to you, but it's increasingly more difficult to do that now. And it's taking quite a while for people to, apply, but then to actually get the money into your bank account. From what I understand, it can be quite an arduous process.
That's exactly it.
Okay.
And what we need to do, and what the health experts are saying, is that the workplace transmission is the biggest deal. We need to stop it. Paid sick leave is one of the best ways to respond to it.
Yeah. So you were an MPP before you made the move to federal politics, of course. So you're familiar with how all of this played out in Ontario. The Liberal government really didn't do much on paid sick days for a long time for people who didn't have them until they were desperate for NDP votes in the dying days of the Wynne government, and then they offered paid sick days. And then they lost the election anyway, and then Doug Ford and his PC party did away with the legislation that had the paid sick days and the higher minimum wage and a whole bunch of other things. So what should be, do you think there should be an accompanying reform at the provincial level too? What do you think, Mr. Singh?
Yes, absolutely. And in fact, what needs to happen at the provincial level is also job security. Right now, there's no guarantee if someone does take paid sick leave that their workplace won't just say, well, we don't have paid sick leave included in our agreement with you, and you've taken a day off or a couple of days off or a week off, we're not going to continue your employment. That can still happen. So absolutely, the provincial government needs to step up. Doug Ford's been abysmal on this. We've got horrible numbers in Ontario, and really no excuse since the Ford government sitting on billions of dollars of support from the federal government and hasn't spent it on.
Yeah, I know that's out there. I know that's out there today. I interviewed Peter Bethlenfalvy just a few weeks ago. He insists there's no magic stash of money anywhere in Ontario. It's all accounted for. I know there's a report in the media today that says the Ontario government is sitting on $4 billion. When I interview the finance minister for the government of Ontario, he says it's not true. It's all going somewhere, Mr. Singh. It's all going somewhere, he says.
We haven't seen them spend it on any sort of relief for people. There's no program in place in Ontario in a concrete way to support people who are sick, or to support smaller classroom sizes, or to support long-term care. They really haven't done any of those things. And we've seen in other provinces like BC, those changes have been made. The supports have been rolled out.
Okay. I want to ask you about a few more things. Do you have the time? Are you in a rush? Okay. What is your reaction to Buy American from the new president, Joe Biden? Should Canada retaliate? What do you think? What should we do here with Buy American?
Yeah, this is going to present a real problem for Canadian manufacturing. And what we need to do is get tough on making sure we fight for Canadian jobs. So there was some indication that Biden is open to the idea that this won't impact, that he doesn't intend for it to impact Canadian workers. Well, we need to see what those guarantees are. We need to make sure that workers here in Canada can continue to do the great work and produce the great products, and make sure we've got a market in the States where we can sell it.
Okay. Julie Payette, the dearly departed Governor General, qualifies for a pension of just short of $150,000 a year for life, fully indexed to the rate of inflation, plus an expense account that's more than $200,000 a year. She was on the job less than 3.5 years, Mr. Singh. A lot of working class people can only dream of such a retirement. as I know you will. You're well aware of that. What this is a bitter pill for a lot of people to swallow. What should be done here?
Absolutely. I can't imagine what a working class person, someone working and struggling, hears this and it just does not sit well with them, particularly given the fact that Ms. Payette resigned with a report that really, a damning report that outlined some really serious abuse of workers, harassment, and really difficult workplace conditions. Given all of that, I think that there's got to be a way to send a message that this type of behavior should not be rewarded. There's limitations in terms of the agreement. There must be some sort of discussion that happened between the Prime Minister and Ms. Payette for her to have resigned like this. She tendered her own resignation. What was the agreement? Is there a way for us to ensure that this type of behavior is not rewarded? Those are very valid questions that need to be answered.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Singh. Always nice, sir. Always very generous with your time. Jagmeet Singh, the leader of Canada's New Democrats, coming up to 11:17. Again, coming up next, Prime Minister's at Rideau Cottage. He is going to say something about something soon. We'll cover it when it starts. This is City News.
Papa Jack was started 14 years ago, really by accident more than anything. A friend of mine had bought a grocery store. A popcorn machine was in there. He didn't want it. I ended up by buying it. My family thought I was nuts. When I first said, come and pick up this popcorn machine, my son said, what the heck for? I won't use exact words. But anyway, we started, and it just kept on growing and growing. But at the time, I was the only one selling popcorn in Ottawa. But we persevered as a family, and here we are. So it's been very, very rewarding for my family and myself. And to see our brand name, Papa Jack, and Papa Jack came out of, I wanted something that was going to be very bilingual. So Papa, and then in Ontario, everybody called me Jack, even though my name is Jacques. In Quebec, it's fine, it's Jacques, but in Ontario, it was always Jack. So we married the two together, Papa, Jack. With the store that we have on Thurston Drive, it basically, the factory's in the back. If you come into the store, you can see how the popcorn is being made during the week. So it adds an extra layer of, you can see the sanitation, you can see how we do it. It's not like making popcorn. Most people thought when I started this, I was making popcorn in my garage or in my basement. No, never did. It was started in this building, in the back of the building, and then we kept growing and growing until what we have now. My daughter and my son came up with a brilliant idea to do a fundraiser online. So basically all people have to do is to register here, and we give them a special code number. And with that code number, they tell their friends or their neighbors, everybody, to buy online from us with that code number. And then at the end of each period, could be 2 weeks, could be a month, then we'll pay them a 20% of all the businesses that we got through that code number. One thing I'd like to say is thank you to all the Ottawa people who have supported us and support local businesses. Sometimes people, they talk about buying locally. Now it becomes that much more important to buy locally, to support your local businesses, because not too many of them are going to survive this. We're fortunate that we're so far so good.
Changing.
So keep up with Rob.
The Rob Snow Show returns on Rogers TV and City News, 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Here's Prime Minister Trudeau.
Allies are following suit. Just take the United States, where they've recently adopted the same requirement for a negative test before flying back into the country. We are doing whatever it takes to keep Canadians safe. As I've said before, when it comes to protecting you and your family, nothing is off the table. We will not hesitate to take even tougher measures if and when they're needed, and we'll be making an announcement in the coming days. The bad choices of a few will never be allowed to put everyone else in danger. Of course, travel is only one part of the equation when it comes to beating COVID-19. Fighting this pandemic also means we need the tools to test and trace the spread of the virus right here at home. In the last week alone, we've delivered over 1 million rapid tests to the provinces and territories. That brings us to 15.4 million rapid tests that we've sent out to the front lines, and even more are on the way. Le dépistage est essentiel pour combattre la
Testing is critical to fight COVID-19 and to be in the best possible position when mass vaccination starts in the spring. We are doing everything we can do to help you and your family overcome the crisis. But we cannot do it alone. We also need you. I've talked about travelers before and the strict border measures being imposed. Let's not forget that it's mostly community transmission that is continuing to spread the disease. There are people who have become an exception to the rule, and unfortunately, because of that, cases are increasing. Hospitals are being overloaded. Surgeries are being postponed. We must do whatever we can, what must be done to follow public health advice. Stay at home. Avoid meetings, wear your masks, and download and use the Alert COVID
I think about
application.
all the people who've been on the front lines of this fight against COVID-19 for almost a year now. They know how far we've come, and they know that we need to keep going just a little longer. To our doctors, nurses, and long-term care workers, thank you. From Victoria to Iqaluit to St. John's, you're taking care of our parents, grandparents, and friends. Right now, you're working longer hours than ever. You are our heroes. Your service and dedication every day is remarkable. De nouveaux défis vont émerger pendant cette période.
New challenges will emerge during these uncertain times, but I know that together we are ready to confront them. This morning, I had a call with the CEO of Moderna who confirmed one more time that the contracts we signed with them will be respected. Furthermore, as planned, by end of March, we will also receive about 4 million doses of the Pfizer vaccine. By September, all Canadians who want to be vaccinated will receive a vaccine. The vaccines are sure and effective, and we are working hard for them to be rolled out as quickly as possible.
It may only be January, but this winter is already turning out to be a long one. And for many business owners who are worried about how to get through to better days, I know that spring and summer seem a long way off. When this pandemic started, we made a promise that we'd be there for Canadians. And every day since, we've done exactly that. Our government has rolled out the largest economic measures in Canada's history to support small businesses across the country, from the Canada Emergency Business Account to the wage subsidy. But even with this help, during a second wave, things are tough. For many businesses and their employees, it's hard to get back on their feet. That's why we're now partnering with Canada's largest financial institutions to introduce the new Highly Affected Sectors Credit Availability Program, or HASCAP. Through HASCAP, Canadian-based businesses that have been hardest hit by the pandemic will be able to receive low-interest loans of up to $1 million. These are 100% Government of Canada-backed loans and can be used for rent, utilities, and help with payroll. Later today, Minister Ng will have more details to share about the loans, including how to access this support once applications open on February 1st. Pendant qu'on aide ceux qui sont le plus durement touchés à
While we are
traverser cette
helping
crise,
those who are
il faut aussi
most
penser
affected
à
by this
l'après-pandémie.
crisis, we need
Avec
to
les vaccins
think
qui
about the
continuent
future.
d'arriver,
As
il y a de
vaccines
l'espoir à
continue to
l'horizon.
arrive, there is hope in the
Ensemble, nous allons
horizon.
pouvoir rebâtir
Together,
une
we
économie
will be
plus forte
able
et
to
plus
rebuild
résiliente,
a stronger
dans laquelle
and more
tout le
resilient
monde a
economy
une chance de réussir.
where everyone has
Une
a chance of
économie avec
succeeding.
de bons emplois,
An
pour que les
economy with
travailleurs
good
puissent
jobs
soutenir
so
leur
that
famille dans un
employees could
environnement
support their
plus sain
families
et plus propre.
in a safer
On a du
and
travail devant
proper
nous, mais
environment.
je sais
We have work to
qu'ensemble,
do ahead,
on va y arriver.
but I know that together we can make it. Thank you.
Merci, Monsieur le Premier ministre. Thank you,
Mr. Prime
We'll be
Minister.
starting with the phone today with one question, one follow-up. Une question, une sous-question. Opérateur, c'est à vous.
Thank you. Merci. First question, Marika Walsh, the Globe and Mail, line open.
Good morning, Prime Minister. Thanks for taking our questions. I'm wondering if you can very clearly explain to Canadians the impact of Europe's threats around export transparency or blocks of vaccine exports or other limits on vaccine exports, what impact that will have on Canada's vaccine supply.
Over the past few weeks, I've spoken with executives at both Pfizer and Moderna who have assured me that we are very much continuing to be on track for receiving our full doses of vaccines in the timelines provided. That is a full 6 million of doses from Pfizer and Moderna by the end of Q1, the end of March. And we are extremely confident we will be able to have everyone vaccinated who wants it in Canada by September 2021. We will, of course, continue to work closely with our European allies and counterparts to ensure that there are not any disruptions to the Canadian supply chain, but Canadians can rest assured that we are working diligently every single day to get as many doses to Canadians as quickly as possible. J'ai parlé dans les dernières semaines à des dirigeants et de Pfizer et de Moderna qu'on source
executives of Pfizer and Moderna and those.
So while the Prime Minister speaks in French and answers, Marika Walsh from the Globe and Mail answers her question in French, we will duck out of this. We'll do our 11:30 news update, and then we'll be right back into the Prime Minister from Rideau Cottage, find out what the questions are. The rest of the questions from the reporters for the Prime Minister will be today. Rob Snow Show, City News.
Number one for local news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Tuesday, January 26th. Good morning. I'm Sarah Buchan. Right now in Ottawa, we've got cloudy skies and -6. It's -4 under cloudy skies in Smiths Falls. Here's what's making news this hour. 1,740 new cases of COVID-19 in Ontario. 63 more Ontarians have died after contracting novel coronavirus. The numbers out of over 30,000 tests. Hospitalizations have risen, but the number of patients in intensive care has dropped. Locally, Public Health Ontario reporting 32 new cases for Ottawa. The Public Health Unit reporting 48 yesterday. Elsewhere, it's 18 new cases for Eastern Ontario and no new cases for Leeds, Grenville, Lanark or Renfrew County and District. The local health units update their numbers in the afternoon. At the vaccine update for the City of Ottawa, officials say it will be several months before the general public in the capital is vaccinated against COVID-19, likely August before that happens. Second shots for residents in long-term care are the priority, followed by essential workers and high-risk populations. The city will have capacity to give 10,000 shots per day through clinics and hospitals. Medical Officer of Health Dr. Vera Etches says she supports reopening of schools in Ottawa and is waiting for a cue from the province this week on that issue. Etches adds, we can't wait for all teachers to be vaccinated before kids return to the classroom. Quebec is reporting 1,166 new cases of COVID-19. 57 more people have died in that province from COVID-19. 4 of those deaths in the past 24 hours. Health officials said today hospitalizations are up in Quebec following 6 straight days of decreases in the number of COVID-related patients. There are 9 new cases in the Outaouais. I'm Sarah Buchan. For News Anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Firm.
Fair.
Fun.
The Rob Snow Show returns
on Rogers TV and City News, 101.1 FM
and 1310 AM.
Back to Rideau Cottage. The Prime Minister is taking questions right now.
The importation of cases extremely low. But obviously, extremely low is still not zero, and 1 case is too many if we're importing, particularly given the variants out there. So as of a few weeks ago, we brought in a new measure that the United States is copying and that others are taking on, which is to demand a negative test in the 72 hours before getting on board the flight back to Canada. Because we already have some of the strongest measures anywhere, we have to be very careful as we move forward on even further measures. One just has to remember that we are reliant on supply chains from around the world for food, for goods, for essential medications, and we do not want measures that we have we're going to be bringing in to further restrict non-essential travel to have an impact on those essential supply chains. That's why we're working very carefully and very diligently on the new measures we will be bringing forward in the coming days to make sure that we are further discouraging non-essential travel, that we are further keeping Canadians safe, but we are not bringing in hardship around our supply lines.
En suivi, Lina?
Follow-up question, Lina? Thank you. I'd like you to better explain your comments on the supply chains. Are you saying that airlines are saying that if we have even less passengers than we have now, there will be an impact on the transportation of goods that we need for the supply chains? Answer, we know that many of the planes are commercial planes and they have passengers, and on board those planes, goods are also transported, so we shall be looking at possible impacts on our supply chain.
We know that many commercial flights transporting passengers also carry goods in the belly of those planes. We need to make sure that we are not interrupting our supply line as we strengthen those measures.
Merci. Opérateur, dernière question au téléphone.
Last question on the phone.
Thank you. Merci. Prochaine question. Boris Proulx, Le Devoir.
Boris Proulx, Le Devoir. Good afternoon, Mr. Prime Minister. Still concerning travel, I would like to know if you feel it's too complicated to restrict non-essential travel, if it's going to have an impact on Canada's activities. Answer, I think that for a year now, we've demonstrated that the pandemic is complicated, but at the same time, we've been able to implement measures to protect Canada Canadians at several levels. As I said, we implemented extremely strict measures to protect Canadians from the importation of variants and COVID-19, either by prohibiting international travelers from March, imposing an obligatory 14-day quarantine.
Okay, so why don't we leave this? A lot of questions about the situation with international travel and growing calls for something to be done with the airports, whether that's a mandatory quarantine in like a quarantine hotel paid for at the traveler's expense for Mr. Trudeau today. A lot of questions about that for Mr. Trudeau, who said, "We will not hesitate to tighten measures. We will not hesitate," but that no specific announcement will be made today. They will have some news on this, quote, in a few days, which I don't know if that qualifies as hesitating, but they say they're not going to hesitate. It's 11:36. A coalition of scientists, communicators, health experts are coming together in a nationwide initiative to empower Canadians to work together against misinformation about COVID-19 and COVID-19 vaccines. It's called Science Up First. And Timothy Caulfield is among them. He is a Canada Research Chair in Health Law and Policy and a professor at the University of Alberta. Good morning, Professor. It's nice to hear from you.
Good morning.
What is Science Up First?
Science Up First is a social media campaign to fight misinformation. And as you know, there is so much misinformation out there right now having a tangible impact, particularly in the COVID space, and unfortunately in relation to vaccines. So what we've done is we've brought together a fantastic team from across Canada. It includes infectious disease experts, public health experts, clinicians, epidemiologists, to vet content and make it available for Canadians. And what we really want people to do is to join this initiative, right? We want this to be a movement. So we want people to join this initiative and help flood social media with the good content. So all people need to do is pick their favorite social media platform, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, start following Science Up First and spread the content.
Okay, yeah, and it's hashtag Science Up First.
That's right. Hashtag Science Up First and at Science Up First for all.
At Science Up First, right? That's the actual account to follow. And so I'm assuming then that if at Science Up First shares, say, information, say the latest research on a vaccine or the latest 2-dose vaccine or an approval or side effects or any one of these thousands of different topics, that the Science Up First is legit. I can trust it, right? Which is the big issue, one of the big issues right now, right?
That's right. Our goal is to use data and information that is from credible sources. First of all, we have leading scientists and clinicians, as I said, as part of our team, right? But in addition to that, we're linking to the entities that are providing the credible information. Whether you're talking about the Public Health Agency of Canada, the CDC, whether you're talking about the World Health Organization, those entities that are aggregating the science in a responsible manner. So that's really, we want people to have the answers, but we also want people to be, really part of this team and spreading the good information and countering the misinformation.
How bad is it on social media, in your opinion, Professor?
It's bad.
Misinformation and conspiracy theories.
Yeah, it's so bad. I've been studying this area for decades, and I've never seen anything like this. It's absolutely incredible. And one of the things that's happened, and I'm sure you've noticed this, is it's become more polarized too. So now misinformation is not only is it spreading, but it's become part of an ideological flag. I mean, who would have guessed that masks and hydroxychloroquine would be, an ideological flag? If someone told you that a year ago, you wouldn't believe it, but that's where we are. So essential, and to fight this, and there's real evidence that this is having an adverse impact, unfortunately.
How, in your opinion, how damaging is it when politicians become involved and become the spreaders of misinformation?
Well, incredibly.
I mean, for example, one of them, we have a pretty well-known one here in Ontario, Randy Hillier, who's like, spewing all kinds of stuff, and it's driving local doctors mad. That this stuff
he's
happens,
a really
right?
good, interesting example, actually, because I'm giving a talk right after I speak with you. I'm going to use him as an example because he started that concentration camp conspiracy theory. I don't know if you remember that, right? This idea that the federal government was creating internment camps and concentration camps and spreading misinformation. And that took off. It was adopted by conspiracy theory websites, and then was picked up by social media, and then sort of more legitimate politicians started adopting it. But it's also a good news story because it really shows why our campaign is so necessary. What happened was immediately trusted voices said, this is not true, here's really what's going on, and I think it killed the conspiracy theory. And so it shows that conspiracy theories are sprouting up everywhere. They can be incredibly harmful, but if you get at it quick, and you get at it quick with good information, you can make a difference.
Yeah. So it's going in phases, I notice, this initiative. ScienceUpFirst.com, lots of information there, and that's where you follow the accounts. But phase 1, launching January 2021. Here we are, the end of January 2021. Seek, evaluate, amplify existing best available science-based content. And then phase 2 is to track trending misinformation. So tell me a little bit about the next phase of this. Professor?
Well, what we want to do is again, we want this to be a science-informed strategy, right? And what we want to do is we want to get a sense of what is the misinformation that's doing the most damage. What is starting to trend, and we want to create content that can specifically respond to it. And the other thing we want to do is we want to engage communities, right? Because again, evidence to show that matters. So we want to get more targeted. We want to get a little more strategic in phase 2. And the other thing that we want to do is on the website, and that hopefully this will happen relatively soon. We want to have the resource, trusted resources, so the website becomes a one-stop shop for people, right? They can go get trusted voices, and they can also go get content that they themselves can share.
Well, it's very interesting because one of the things that I would like to know a little bit more about is it's been reported and the data would suggest that racialized communities are more impacted by the health effects of COVID-19, the spread, the illness, the disease for a whole host of reasons, income, socioeconomic factors, the types of jobs that people are working, where people are living, all of these things. But also, there's a higher degree or percentage of people in racialized communities are also vaccine hesitant. So it would be interesting to know what's going on there, right, Professor Caulfield, don't you think?
You're right. Incredibly important points you just raised. One, that racialized communities are more affected by the pandemic, and two, there are trust issues, and there are understandable, legitimate trust issues with many of these communities. So when I made the reference earlier about communities, that's exactly what I was thinking about, right? We have to engage these communities in a way that is meaningful and is going to help spread the good information amongst those communities. And it is about trust, right? It really is about trust. So you need individuals, you need leaders, you need influencers from those communities to be part of the team. Thank you, Professor Caulfield. Very nice to hear from you today. Great, thank you. Yep, Timothy Caulfield from the University of Alberta, against ScienceUpFirst.com. Very important initiative there, fighting back against the misinformation and the disinformation and the crazy conspiracy theories. Okay, Bill Gates is not implanting microchips into your body. Just stop that already. Leaked from a lab, bioweapon let loose. There is no zombie apocalypse, ladies and gentlemen. It's 11:44. Rob Snow Show. We're back talking about the Ottawa Police and mental health crisis response here on City News.
No Nut Butter is a business where we make allergy-friendly spreads, so alternatives to peanut butter, Nutella, or those kind of things that kids and adults like to have on toast or on a banana or on an apple, and aren't really available to people with severe food allergies or allergies to the top allergens. When you're an allergy parent, you read every label because you need to know the details of every ingredient that's in the products that you're going to feed your kid. So we found that a lot of the products that we were looking at had may contain warnings, which we can't have, and had just so many ingredients in them that you don't know if there's a weird unknown ingredient that is kind of disguised under a different name. So we started No Nut Butter so that we would have the opportunity to have products that were safe and free from the top allergens and had really simple ingredients in them so that you would know exactly what you were feeding your kids. We make 4 different products at No Nut Butter. So we make a pumpkin seed butter, which is our alternative to peanut butter. So it only has pumpkin seeds, roasted pumpkin seeds, and some kind of oil in it. So we usually use corn oil or olive oil. And then we make what we call Choco Pumpkin, and it is our alternative to a chocolate hazelnut spread. So it is our pumpkin seed butter with our chocolate spread, so very much chocolate hazelnut spread. We make a coconut caramel, so it is coconut milk and sugar, and it is our kind of vegan option for caramel because typically caramel has lots of butter and dairy in it. And then we make an apple butter, which is apples and cinnamon and sugar, and that's it. We do also make a sugar-free pumpkin seed butter option because we have some diabetics and just some people who don't want sugar in their lives, and so we do offer that, but you'd have to custom order it. There are very strict rules around producing products, particularly nut-free products. You aren't allowed to cook in your own kitchen, which makes a lot of sense. If you have a dog, you don't want to cook in your own kitchen. But from a nut standpoint, it's just making sure that you have everything really clean and organized. So we cook all of our products in a commercial kitchen so that we can keep all of those health and safety procedures really tight and together. My personal business started a company called Shop Local Ontario during the pandemic, so we were pretty well equipped to go forward into the pandemic in a world of e-commerce and transacting online. You can find us online at nonutbutter.com, or you can find us on Facebook, No Nut Butter, or on Instagram at No Nut Butter.
Pillar of community opinion.
The Rob Snow Show returns
on Rogers TV and City News. 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
The Ottawa Police Service is looking to improve its mental health response strategy. This was before the Ottawa Police Services Board this week, and we are following up now with Steve Bell. He is the Deputy Chief of the Ottawa Police Service. Good morning, Deputy Chief. Very nice to hear from you, sir.
Morning, Rob. Thanks for having me on this morning.
So right now it's at the consultation strategy phase. Tell us more about this, Deputy Chief.
So actually, I would put it one step before that. It's right now at a stage where we're looking to build community capacity and build a group that can help lead and guide us through this really complex issue. It's about more than just police response, and I think that's a really important point. We need to do a better job in our crisis response, there's no doubt, and we need the community input on that. But unless we actually look at the system that's been built over the last 40 years in the mental health sector, we'll never actually get to better outcomes. We will keep responding to people in crisis. So we really want to focus not only on that crisis response, but on how we create better coordination and better access within the mental health sector in Ottawa.
Right. Police are not mental health experts, but they're called to situations where people are certainly suffering from some kind of crisis with their mental health, nor are experts in mental health trained police officers. So the challenge, it seems, Deputy Chief Bell, is how do you integrate those two? That's one of the great challenges, right?
Yeah, absolutely, and it's a challenge. It's a challenging question. You're absolutely right. Police have become over-relied on in responding to mental health issues. The community's been really loud and clear that the police should play a lesser role in mental health service provisions. We agree with that. We want to bring groups together to look at how we can actually minimize the policing role in those mental health responses by having better upstream services, better coordination, better access, particularly for those most vulnerable in our community. It's a big undertaking, but it's one that I know our community can actually achieve because the resolve we've heard to do this has been overwhelming.
Okay. See, I've been giving this a lot of thought because it's the Abdi case and it's and what it's done to the community and the debates and the trial and everything else. It's caused a lot of people, I think, to think about how policing and how we deal with mental health issues. All of these issues have kind of like collided and burst into the community, and sometimes not in a good way. And one of the things I still struggle to kind of get past, even the most elementary part of that case, is that somebody called the police. Somebody thought something was not right in the community, and this happens every day. Somebody called the police. So are the police not going to show up? The police, so when somebody calls 911, you want the police to show up, right? You don't know if it's a mental health issue or what. So what are you supposed to do in that situation?
And it's so I'm going to start where you started.
Yeah.
You've given it a lot of thought. You know what? I'm happy to hear that. There's a lot of people in our community that have given this a lot of thought because it's a challenging issue. If you call the police are going to respond. There is no doubt. We will triage. We will look at how we come out and respond to criminal and non-criminal issues on a regular basis. That's what we do. That's what we're here for.
Right.
Like I said, we have a system that's been built over 40 years. It's a system that's actually turned itself to revert a lot of the crisis response to a police response. The community's been loud and clear with us. We need to turn that. We need to change that. So a system that got built over 40 years is not going to turn on a dime overnight. We are not withdrawing from those calls for service. We're not saying tomorrow we're not going to those anymore. What we are saying is we need to hear from our community. We need to hear from our mental health professionals. We need to hear from people with lived experiences and their families. And we need to hear from the general public to come up with a way where we can find the right place between community service provision and police response to those issues.
Okay. Is there a template out there somewhere? Is there a police force somewhere in Canada that's comparable to a force the size of the Ottawa Police Service, or in the United States, for example? Is there a force that's comparable to the Ottawa Police Service where we can look and say, there's a police service that seems to have a pretty good plan on how to deal with this. They've been there. They've taken a look at it. Does the template exist, Deputy Chief, to do something like this?
So there's no playbook.
No playbook.
With that,
okay.
There's no plug and play for us. There are a lot of different models. There's a lot of really effective models out there in different cities. Ottawa's a unique community. We actually have a really good sense of community cohesion. We have a really good institutional and community-based mental health service provision here that's unique to our city and the needs we have here. We want to bring this council together so that they can help us look at all of those different models, take the pieces that will work in Ottawa, build the pieces that we need to build individually here for our system to come up with the right fit for Ottawa. There is no plug and play, but there is a good landscape here to develop the best model for our city.
So would you say you're at the kind of, you're making an appeal right now to say, I don't even like this word, but stakeholders, like community stakeholders? We want to hear from you how we can improve this situation here, how we can better this situation?
So I actually think we're listening to an appeal. I think we've heard from our community that the police need to find a different role within the mental health system, and we've heard that, and we're listening to that. Now we need to work to bring community groups together. We've leveraged 6 different mental health networks within our city to identify people to come in and give us guidance, give us direction on how we have that how we create better crisis response, but also to look at the overall mental health and substance use landscape in Ottawa, to look at how they coordinate better and how they create better access for people.
Yeah. I mean, for example, I often will drive by a place like the Shepherds, for example, and, you know, you have the Shepherds there and the Mission is there. And quite often I will see Ottawa police cruisers near the Shepherds, for example, for a whole host of reasons. There are people who have mental health issues. There are people who have addictions issues. They have precarious housing issues. I'm wondering, for that rank and file police officer who's been called to attend to something at the Shepherds, do they have the skill set? Are they in the frame of mind that this person may need some assistance that goes beyond anything involving police or criminal justice? They're sick and they need attention from a mental health expert or an addictions expert or something like that, Deputy Chief. What do you think?
So I think it's a great question because I think it has a lot of different layers to it.
Okay.
So the first one I'll say is we're actually really fortunate in Ottawa because we've taken a really different approach around our community safety and well-being plan.
All right.
And that is around the fact that there are so many intersectional factors that can and do affect any one of those people who we're responding to crisis calls with. So the city is actually undertaken to really identify their 6 priorities around community safety well-being, of which mental health and substance abuse is one, to really look at how we set up a system that works together to actually drive changes for all of those different circumstances that affect one's mental health. So that's where we're fortunate in this city. When you get to the more specific issues like training, we know that we can do a better job with equipping our officers with training around response to mental health calls. We're very committed to that, and that's something that we're going to look at this year. We're going to do that under the direction, under the input, and under the co-production of training packages with our guiding council, because there is a huge input from professional mental health providers, people with lived experiences, and their families that can really help guide this work to make sure we're doing the best and most effective training.
Thank you, Deputy Chief Bell. Great pleasure, sir. It's going to be a long road, I think. Thanks again.
It is, but it's going to be rewarding at the end. Thank you very much.
Thank you again. Yep. Steve Bell is the Deputy Chief of the Ottawa Police Service. That's it for the Rob Snow Show for today. Back after the 9 o'clock news tomorrow.
This program is brought to you by Ignite TV. Now you're in command. Visit Rogers.com for more details.
Call the Rogers TV viewer response line. Email us or connect with us on social media.